This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Many, Mickey, Fishy!
You are listening to the Voices of Wrestling Podcast with your hosts, Joe Lanza.
X out and go listen to some boring podcast where they're afraid of their own shadow. Okay? Don't listen to Joe Lanza, because Joe Lanza's not changing.
And Rich Craich.
I like him. Who delivers this guy in a big spot?
Joe, don't yell at me. I like him.
In the big spot, who delivers better than this guy?
Stop yelling at me. I agree.
All right, welcome once again to the Voice of Wrestling Flagship Podcast. I'm Rich Craich, alongside, as always, King of Banter, very good family man, Mr. Joe Lanza. Joe, what's happening?
Well, I mean, you missed a lot.
I did. I've never, people always say, oh, there's Rich taking a vacation during the second week of the Champion Carnival, or, it's like everything back in the old days. Wrestling happened every day. There was always something going on, and it was always the joke of it. There was the one year I went during WrestleMania weekend. I get it. That one, I definitely, that was terrible planning. But otherwise, it'd be like, oh, Rich, it's like the third week of the G1. You can't miss it this week. Or, oh, no, it's Survivor Series weekend. Rich, you can't miss that one. Like all the other ones, it got a little ridiculous. The WrestleMania weekend one, that one was fair. But this, I couldn't have picked a better week to just fucking not have internet connection, occasionally check my phone and go, oh my God, and then close the phone, throw it away, throw it down a fucking canyon, throw it into a geyser hot spring, and just run away as much as I possibly could from wrestling news, because good God, what a bloodletting that was last week. Holy shit.
The problem is you can't possibly entirely catch up, and there's no question you're going to be like putting over.
I know. I'm trying to make a master list. I think you did a pretty good job on Patreon, voicewrestling.com/Patreon. I think, was it Monday that you did that one, the Monday roundup?
I did a Monday news roundup where I went over everyone who had been punished to that point.
Right.
That's hardly...
It's not a master list at all, but...
No, because it's very hard for some of the larger corporate entities to punish people without, super hard evidence, or in some cases the people are still being investigated. So the list is far more extensive when it comes to the accused. And with you not being around while it was all going on, it was so crazy. I was trying to do like news updates behind the paywall all week long. And the problem was I would set up some notes and get ready to record. And every 15 minutes, there'd be another deluge of news. It just never stopped. And it was 24 hours. And it was just surreal, and it was hard to keep up even sitting home on your phone the whole time. And with you being gone, I mean, there's no question. I mean, you've definitely missed some. And there's going to be some that slip through the cracks and don't get punished or get swept under the rug. That's inevitable. And you are definitely going to put over some kid touchers at some point, because there's no way that you've seen it all. Like, because you weren't even around.
Right. Especially like the indies ones. Because like you had mentioned on that news roundup as well, that like, here's the people that have been, punished or fired or, whatever. But like, there's a lot of dudes and that are on the independents or whatever, that it's just like, they can't really be fired. They can just sort of be shunned or blacklisted or whatever. So they've been named, but we won't know that they officially are like quote unquote fired from anything until, bookings resume and that person never gets bookings again. And we can go, oh yeah, okay, that was, one of the guys that was listed. Cause yeah, like I was trying to follow as much as I could with, again, I was very glad to be away at national parks where I had no internet connection or whatever. But what I was finding is that like, I forget, you might remember the name. I don't even remember the name because it was such a crazy busy week. But who was I think it was a UK guy who had been gone for a while, came back, was like dancing on the graves of people that got named, and then got named himself like 3 minutes later, then deleted his Twitter.
That was like 100 you got.
Damn it. There was the one that was like, it was like grand opening, grand closing for whoever this was. Oh my God.
You're talking about Josh Bodum.
That's it, Josh Bodum. He reintroduced his Twitter account and was like, yeah, I forget even who he was dancing on the grave of.
This is what he said. He'd been shunned since the ref incident.
Yeah,
where
correct.
He beat up the ref.
Right.
And so he reactivates his Twitter account to basically say, oh, you guys want names? I'll name some names. Because, he's just going to burn it all down.
Right, he doesn't give a shit anymore. Yeah, he's got nothing to protect anymore.
Rich, literally 5 minutes later, he gets accused and immediately shuts down his Twitter account again. It was the quickest resurfacing and then recanceling in the history. And he was hardly the only one. It became like a running gimmick where as soon as a wrestler came out to support those that were speaking out, you knew within the hour they were going down. It happened multiple times. His was just, the most egregious example of it because he's had a terrible reputation forever anyway.
Right. I like the progress leadership. That was always great too. They're like, all right, we're getting rid of these people. These are the new people. Wait, no, those people are gone too. And then like, was it OJO or whatever was like, all right, OJO is now like the official, and then he said something, and then like literally like 20 hours later.
You're talking about Michael Oku?
Yeah, Michael Oku. Yeah, that's it.
What the hell are you calling him?
OJMO or whatever is
OJMO. I thought you were saying OJO.
No. Sorry, OJMO.
What's OJO? You talk so fast. Like, you're the fast talk. You've always been the fast talker of the show. It sounded like you're saying OJO, and I'm like, who the fuck is OJO? Is he talking about Oku? Well, you were saying OJMO. You're slipping the M in there.
Yeah, sorry. But
you talk so fast, I can't hear the M.
But, so they and again, I'm just, like, I had to kind of figure all this stuff out, like, 24 hours later, which may as well have been, like, 9 weeks in last week's news or whatever. But yeah, I see that like they appointed him as like a figurehead in progress or whatever, and then like 20 hours later, he tweets out, I have to step down from my post as a figurehead in progress. And like, good God. Yeah. And now there's like literally one person left in progress, right? Like the entire company is just completely burnt to the ground.
Well, there's one original owner left, and yeah, they named a new like leadership board or whatever the term they use, and he was on it, and then he got exposed for using some naughty words in a private chat. I don't know what the words were, and he stepped down. Yeah, the progress ownership / leadership is like the Spinal Tap drummer now. It's just it changes daily. But I think that Vicky Haskins is part of that now. And one of the original owners, and then a couple of other people. Oku, but he was another one of these guys who immediately stepped up and then had to step down. So, yeah, it's a big mess. I mean, and it's a weird week not to have a flagship in the midst of all of it. But I mean, I did talk about all of it 2 or 3 times behind the paywall. One of the New Japan Cup reviews, I mean, I couldn't ignore it. I mean, it was right in the middle of everything. So I did about 35 minutes of audio on it that day, and then the news roundup on Monday, sort of just dealing with all the fallout from over the weekend. So, I mean, I was never planning on doing a flagship last week anyway when you were gone, because now we're doing it live and everything, and you handle all that shit. I don't know what I'm doing. And I was just going to take the week off and do all the paywall audio with all the New Japan Cup shows and everything, and but it's not like it had to be discussed, though. You can't just punt the topic. So I made sure I talked about it at least a couple times behind the paywall. And now, there's going to be more allegations trickling in, I'm sure. I mean, as more women become comfortable talking about things. But we're mostly dealing with fallout now. And I think there have been a few more firings or punishments since I talked about it on Monday, but there's still a lot hanging out. And it's like, I've been saying this all along too to the listeners, but I think people need to prepare themselves for a lot of these guys skating. I mean, it doesn't, like Matt Riddle, it doesn't appear he's going to be punished publicly in any way because he made them aware of it years ago, when they signed him. Apparently. So it's like they were aware of it and already did they're investigating and they're vetting of that whole situation. So when Candy Cartwright came out with her stories, it didn't catch WWE off guard. And that's not me saying they're right or wrong for not punishing him. I'm just saying it doesn't look like he's going to be. I mean, he debuted on SmackDown the same day. They briefly took down, the preview, hyping his debut for about an hour. And then they put it back up, and then his match aired as usual. And, it was like a hero's welcome to the brand on top of everything else. So they're just full steam ahead with Matt Riddle, And I guess they had the conference call with the UK guys earlier this week. The days are starting to blend together because we know that, Jack Gallagher was fired hours after his accusations because he just came clean and said, it's all true. So they just let him go immediately. And he didn't get the good luck in your future endeavors either. He got the cold, this guy's gone, really. You know how they have the two different kinds.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he got the get the fuck out of here release.
He got we have come to the terms on the release of Jack Gallagher, period.
Yeah, done.
Yeah.
Stop. Yeah.
So, that's hit, and he's done. I mean, he's one of the guys who will never wrestle. I don't think he'll ever wrestle again. And then, a couple days later, they fired Travis Banks and Ligero. And I think they've suspended, since the last time I've talked about this to the listeners, they've suspended Joe Coffey. So, and then the rest of those guys, and I'm looking for it, but I can't find it. Wolfgang, Sid Scala, who else from NXT UK? Let me pull it up. Can you think of any off the top of your head while I'm looking for it?
Those are the big names I remember for sure.
It's
you said Wolfgang, right? Sorry,
I got it right here. It right here. So here's what we're left with WWE: Riddle, who we addressed, and then a bunch of and Velveteen Dream, of course, who they pulled from TV and haven't even breathed his name. I think he's going to be gone.
Yes,
he's.
Looking from afar, yeah, it there's a lot of smoke there, a lot of smoke going on with the Velveteen Dream thing, and that's been bubbling for a long time. Yeah, it's been bubbling for a long time too. So,
yeah, I mean he survived it once, and now there's more, and the MO is the same on all of the. If you've read through any of this stuff,
it's like almost templated, which is really kind of weird, because like you could say, they just made that, but like when you're seeing the same style of messages multiple times from multiple people, and now you're like, ooh, okay, that's not good.
Yeah, like you're saying, it's almost templated, and that's how these guys operate.
Yeah,
these predators. But so Riddle, I think Riddle's going to survive. And again, none of these are value judgments. I'm just reading the landscape. I don't think I think Velveteen Dream is done. I think they're just waiting to be able to pin something concrete on him. Devlin made one statement and has disappeared. And I don't think they've made any public comment on Devlin. Wolfgang, I haven't heard them make any public comment on Wolfgang, nor Sid Scala. Joe Coffey suspended. And they fired the two referees, Joel Allen and Chris Roberts, in addition to Banks, Ligero, and Gallagher. And since they had their NXT UK call with Triple H already, I have to think they're done disciplining the NXT UK guys unless they're, the investigations turn some new things up or there's some new accusations. So, it looks like Joe Coffey's going to survive too. Because why would they have suspended him and not fired him if, unless they're still looking into things with him, which I guess is entirely possible. But they didn't take any step with Devlin or Wolfgang or Scala. But that's what's going on with WWE and AEW. Subscribers to the Everything Elite Patreon, I mean, they broke news on the AEW stuff that I haven't seen reported anywhere. I haven't read the Observer yet, so I don't know if the Observer has it.
I have not either, so I can't say for sure.
But, they suspended Guevara for the comment on the podcast, without pay, gave his pay to a woman's charity. And Jimmy Havoc, with the news broken on Everything Elite is, they put him into the rehab, which was the right thing to do. The man clearly has issues. and he's going to retire. And it's like, I've been saying all week long, Jimmy Havoc will never wrestle again. I mean, no one's going to book him. So it's like, you can call it a retirement, you can call it whatever, but, I don't know if he's going to face any criminal charges for some of the things he's been accused of. Maybe he should. He probably should. But I think the best thing for Jimmy Havoc is to complete his rehab and get the fuck out of the public life.
Yeah.
I just, when you read about the details of the accusations, and it's not like in the case of Havoc, this stuff wasn't really a secret. Maybe the particulars, but everybody knew that Havoc had a lot of problems long before last week. And, you can praise AEW for avoiding Joey Ryan. And, it's well known at this point that Tony Khan was never a fan of Joey Ryan and wasn't going to hire him no matter how many of his VPs were pushing for it. I mean, and we were told that directly. Joey Ryan was never going to work for AEW.
Yeah, even before, when all the rumblings were going on, and it seemed so obvious that Joey Ryan was AEW bound, and we were the ones saying, no, don't buy that one. Which was
reinforced last week. But, I mean, you can praise them for dodging that bullet. You can praise them for maybe steering clear of David Starr. But, I mean, Jimmy Havoc was a mistake. It's because it's not like this Jimmy Havoc stuff was ever like a closely guarded secret. I mean, even fans knew that Jimmy Havoc had some sketchy shit. A lot of it tied to his drinking, and that's not excusing him.
Right.
But I think that they handled that properly. Instead of just cutting the guy loose, they're like, okay, you know what? We're going to help this guy get the help he needs. And then we're going to just wash our hands of him. Then we're going to wash our hands. Because, by saying that, that they were going to send him to rehab and then reevaluate later, you can read through those tea leaves. He was never wrestling for AEW again. I mean, they were going to get him through rehab, or at least attempt to, do their best to try to help the guy out from that standpoint, and then they were going to wash their hands of him. But it looks like he's taking the decision right out of their hands anyway, and he's going to retire. And Guevara, I mean, he'll be back, and he deserves to be back. I don't think Sammy Guevara deserves to be shunned. He said a stupid thing. He said a, edgelordy thing on an edgelordy podcast. And I obviously am not one to cast stones in that direction. I mean, he deserved punishment, and I think he got fair punishment. And, now the thing with Sammy Guevara is now there's no leeway with him. He has to walk the straight and narrow.
Right,
now.
Exactly. Right.
That's all, and that's fair. I mean, now he has to be on his best behavior, and he has to prove and show that he's learned. And we've talked about Sammy Guevara for years. He had maturity issues on the Texas indie scene that we talked about on this show before half the people listening knew who he was. And he went through a period where he was blackballed and, because he said something stupid on Facebook, whatever it was, 6 years ago, or I don't remember what year it was anymore. When he was a rising star in the indie scene, that delayed his rise because he said something dumb on Facebook. Not similar to what he said with the Sasha thing, just something else dumb. He had said something really dumb about a fan who had died, and a fan / someone who also kind of worked with a promotion, a San Antonio promotion, River City Wrestling. And he was punished for that too, because no one, he got blackballed for a little while and for about a year or so. And then, he started getting booked again. So there have been maturity issues with Sammy Guevara all along the way. Now, that first issue, he was like 20. This time he was like, what was this, 2016?
2016, yeah.
It was like 22 or something when he said this. And I'm not, again, it's not excusing, but, people that are 20 and 22 say and do things that are stupid. I know I did.
Yeah, and he was a particularly stupid young kid. Well, as mentioned.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, and he would even cop to that, I think. And it's like, I couldn't imagine being in the public eye and being a celebrity when I was in my early 20s. I mean, I've been canceled 1 million times in my 30s. I would have been canceled 9 million times in my 20s. Forget it. So it's like, I don't excuse, but I understand. And he doesn't deserve to be banished like some of these other. Rich, they're serial rapists.
Right, and I was
running around wrestling.
That one of the things I did want to address a little bit, as I was kind of watching it, play out from afar last week, is seeing these, master lists of, these are the bad people, and like seeing, and I'm not excusing what any people, listed on that list did or whatever, but there's definitely like, there's lengths of, you know what I mean? Like there's different levels of what people were doing. Just seeing a master list of people and being like, wait a minute, like that person was just being like, whatever, that person versus Joey Ryan. Like they don't deserve to be on a list next to Joey Ryan just because they've been mentioned at some point over the last, 2 months as like, we're talking like legit, like Joey Ryan should be in jail. Like Brandon Stroud should be in fucking jail. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's numerous people that are listed among this thing that should be in jail. And I hated seeing like just random people on that list of like, yeah, this guy was like creepy or something. And I'm like, okay, like we really need to I'm not saying you have to color code the list or whatever, but like, it rubbed me the wrong way just seeing a master list of 400 names or whatever and being like, wait, two of those, like some of those people need to be in jail for what they've done, versus some of these others.
The problem is we don't need the lists. I mean, even the women coming out with their stories were very uncomfortable with the lists. For some of the reasons you're saying and some other reasons too, like a lot of the people putting together the lists, maybe their hearts were in the right place, but they were doing a really poor job. I mean, just putting names on there with unvetted stories and just people sending them random DMs, that shit is dangerous, And it's like, and like you're saying, there are levels to this. Like Joey Ryan and Brandon Stroud in particular, those two, like you said, I mean, though they belong behind bars. I mean, the stories coming out about those two guys are fucking heinous. Yeah. I don't even have words to describe.
The Stroud stuff is fucking unbearable.
Oh
like, I read one of it the other day, and I just put my phone away, and I was just like, Jesus fucking Christ, I can't even believe what I'm reading.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even have adjectives. I don't have words to describe some of the shit that those two in particular, and some others too. I mean, there's so many stories, it's easy to forget a lot of these. And it's like, there is such a difference between what Brandon Stroud was doing to seemingly dozens of women. I mean, and even if it was just one woman, I mean, the things he was doing were they were pure evil. And Joey Ryan was like reminiscent of Harvey Weinstein, like getting women into his hotel room and then assaulting them, and in some cases raping them. I mean, that's Harvey Weinstein shit. And Harvey Weinstein is rightfully behind bars. Joey Ryan belongs in prison. And I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but it should. And, again, we talked earlier, patterns. There's a pattern with Joey Ryan. It's the Harvey Weinstein pattern. Do whatever it takes to get them into a hotel room and then do your worst. And it's fucking gross. And Stroud too, and it's like, you're right, it's weird that see these lists with people like that next to someone who said a bad word on a podcast, whether it was Sammy Guevara or whoever else, or someone who flirted a little too aggressively in some text messages and wasn't picking up the hint that the woman wasn't interested. There's levels here, not that any of it's acceptable, but there certainly are some levels, and that's why the lists were bad, because you're lumping everyone together, and people aren't always going to do research. They're not going to say, oh, what did so-and-so do? And I don't even have a specific example. They're just going to see the name next to Joey Ryan and tie everyone together like everyone's a serial rapist. So I definitely hear you there. But a lot of the lists, though, have faded because I think people kind of realized that most people were very uncomfortable with the lists.
Yeah, okay, that's good to know. At least
it's one of them came down because there were two or three different lists being generated, and one of them, the Twitter account was down very within 48 hours of it going up, because I think there were just so many loose accusations being thrown, and then people lawyering up. Like Trent Seven.
Yeah, he was the one that I definitely saw.
He is lawyered up. And look, I don't know enough about his accusations to speak about them, and I'm not going to do that. But he's just an example of some. Matt Riddle lawyered up, and there's many examples.
Devlin appears to have as well, probably.
Which is why he's disappeared. Yeah, and it's like you start throwing people's names on lists, and if some of them have legitimate counters to these stories, they're going to lawyer up and come after you, which is why that one Twitter account disappeared and that list disappeared. There's a couple others floating around. But you even have accusers saying, hey, pump the brakes on these lists. I mean, it's a little irresponsible to be lumping everyone together. But, Impact, I don't know if they've taken further action since Monday when I talked about it, but, Dave Christ is gone. Elgin is gone. Now, Elgin's weird because the statement didn't really say that they were firing him.
Yeah,
but
he's removed from future programming, I think is the statement that they made. So,
but he's, for all intent and purpose, he's gone. I mean, I even think he thinks he's gone. Joey Ryan, obviously, that
he's done. I mean, if Joey Ryan will never wrestle again.
Joey Ryan is done. He should be in prison. Brandon Stroud is done. Obviously he's never going to get a platform again, and he should be in prison. I mean, there's so many stories about Brandon Stroud that it's like there's just no plausible deniability. I mean, it's just and the stories are just – and remember, that stuff's been kind of floating out there, but never to this – I don't think any of us imagined – like, obviously I'm here in Texas, and I know a lot of people who are friends with the guy, and he's no stranger to being a topic of conversation on this show. And – we're not here to dig up petty grudges because it would be a real bad look to do that.
Right. I do want to address that real quick because we had a lot of people being like, yeah, do it. Say, because Brandon Stroud had, obviously, and we had a very public feud with him. But, like, in this case, when there's legit, like, actual victims of Brandon Stroud, I don't feel right being like, yeah, we won, Joe. Like, we showed him. Like, nobody won in this case. Because there's victims that are under, like, dealt with just fucking horrendous things from this guy. So it's like
we fucking rape people.
I know. I can't be like, yeah, we showed him, Joe. We won the war. Like, I'm not going to do that because there's victims of his heinous crimes.
Allegedly drugged and raped people.
Right.
I'm not going to high five you over.
Right. Yeah. That's very poor form. So no, I know a lot of people are asking, all right, and I get it. They're coming from a good place, but yeah, we're not going to do that show where we say, hey, we told you show Brandon was a weirdo and we said it and we won the war. Like, not when there's victims of heinous crimes like he perpetrated. So yeah, no way.
And him allegedly drugging and raping people is like the tip of the fucking iceberg.
Oh, that's not. Yeah, that's half of it. The fucking quarter of it, I should say.
And every time I turn around, there's a new one on him. It's like Joey Ryan at one point had 16 different specific allegations, and people stopped keeping track. 16 at one point. There's probably more now. I mean, Joey Ryan, basically, every woman he came into contact with, he attempted to rape or assault. I mean, it's mind blowing. And with Stroud, there's just more and more stories, and one is more heinous than the next. These allegations, and I'm not going to sit here and high five you because he got on our case for unmasking an ant. It's just not. But the story about him, at Inspire Pro Wrestling, jacking photos off of a woman's phone while she was either wrestling in a match or he was trusted to keep an eye on the phone. However the story goes, was kind of a sign that there was something going on with this guy.
Remember when we thought that was weird? We were like, what a weirdo, what a creep, what a bad guy. Yeah.
Who knew what the extent of it was? I mean, and like I was starting to say, I mean, I've talked to people from Austin who knew him. Now, look, I have had friends in Texas, wrestlers, whoever else, telling me for years that they knew this guy was no good, and they stayed away from him and told people to stay away from him. But again, and I've talked to people this week from Austin who knew him and worked with him and were close with him and were friends with him, but none of them had any inkling it was that bad. It's like it's similar to what Meltzer said about the people close to Joey Ryan who were like, it's like, and I know a lot of people say, well, how do you not know? Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what all my friends are doing. It's like, I think we all know people who we think might be a little creepy, and it wouldn't necessarily shock us if it turned out that they were, doing something illegal or horrible. But, like, I don't know. Like, Rich, what if you got accused of something, super heinous or I did?
God,
it's like, no, but I'm saying, like, how? Right. I don't know what you do. I have no idea what you do.
Right,
You know,
like the extent of what we talk is like we get on the show here and for 5 minutes before we get on and talk. You're not like, hey, Rich, what'd you do last night? Or hey, what were you doing? Like, we don't text each other on that level. We don't know each other on that level. So yeah, I honestly have no fucking clue what you do Monday through Thursday most weeks. You know, like I have no idea. I kind of assume what I think I know what you do, but I don't know. Yeah, I have no clue.
And even if we did, like, I still don't know what you do. What fucking, like, everyone has skeletons in their closet, but some of those skeletons are you're a fucking serial rapist, and some of them are, fucking mundane. But I have no idea what your skeletons are. How am I supposed to, it's like, so I don't know from that aspect too. Like, I don't know if it's right to just hold people's feet to the fire because they knew somebody or they were even friends with somebody. Because the people I talked to had no clue the extent of the shit. And believe me, I've heard the whispers and, about some of the things that people thought Stroud has been doing throughout the years, because I know people who know him, but none of them ever approach this stuff, is what I'm trying to get at. Like, so, it's just, yeah, I mean, and years ago, which started our lovely relationship that we have with the fine people over at Reddit. Yeah, I made that, I mistakenly, because I underestimated the power of Twitter, and I made that tweet on my personal account that a big story was going to break in wrestling. And, that was the Brandon Stroud phone thing with Inspire.
Right.
And the reason I made that tweet on my personal account was because, okay, I have a wrestling account with, however many followers we had. We got like 15,000 followers or whatever, where, we talk about wrestling and wrestling news. If I had a legitimate, like, huge story, why wouldn't I have tweeted it on our wrestling account? Right? That was what I was trying to say at the time. Like, I tweeted it on my personal account because it was because I underestimated the power of Twitter. And I was just trying to send a tweet out to my friends and people in Texas. It was a big story in that context, right? But what I underestimated was that there were people following me who knew me from this show and as a fucking Z-list wrestling personality or whatever, or pundit, and they ran with it, posted it on Twitter. But that was the big story, that Brandon Stroud, who was a rising star at Uprocks, very high-profile match reviewer and all those sorts of things, involved with Inspire Pro Wrestling, was about to go down because of this creepy phone thing that happened, because I had heard the whispers, and I was like, this is about to break. I never meant for it to be. I had Dave Meltzer emailing me. What did you hear? Was it something about John Cena?
Right, I remember that. Everybody was like...
And I'm like, Dave, it's not. It's like this thing that just spiraled out of control because I underestimated the power of my little personal Twitter account that had like 300 followers. Rich, I had 900 followers within like an hour of the tweet, and it just spiraled out of control. But I don't know if a lot of people know this, but all I meant, the quote unquote big story, was Brandon Stroud phone scandal with Inspire. So at the end of the day, like, I guess my big story did come to fruition. It just took 5 years, but that's all I meant by that. Like, if I had a legitimate big wrestling story, I would have fucking tweeted it from the Voices of Wrestling account, because then people were like, oh, he's just looking for attention, tweeting something like...
You're doing the opposite, yeah.
If I was looking for attention, I would have tweeted it from the account that people follow. I wouldn't have tweeted it from my little dopey account, so that never made sense either. It's just, it was a mistake on my part because I just underestimated, I guess, how people take what I say. And, I tried to just do it on my own account. I didn't think it would get attention, but it did. But anyway, that's what that was all about, however many years ago that was. But, and I guess in terms of some other companies, I mean, Lagana canned. Well, he resigned. He resigned. Mm-hmm. From the NWA, and that's from just a wrestling perspective for the NWA. They've got a lot of holes to fill because he was doing everything. The thing about it is, like, you can get anybody to book. Like, booking is like the easiest hole to fill. Not saying that anyone can book well, That's definitely not the case. I think,
but you could just got a guy on the roster and throw him a notebook and say, all right, you book now. It might suck, but he could do it.
I mean, Corgan could book if he wanted to. Anyone could book.
Tim Storm could do it. Any vet, anybody who's been in the business a long enough time could probably do it if they needed to.
Whoever has wants to put in the work that it takes, because it's not easy to book, a show like that where you're taping 6, 7, 8 weeks at once and you're laying out and you're building to a pay-per-view, and that's actually harder to me than booking week to week to do it all ahead of time. But all of the other things that Lagana was responsible for. So I think, the NWA show is in some trouble here. I mean, they have a lot
it was
of
as much of a one-man show as you could possibly have. I mean, Lagana was literally filming everything, editing everything, releasing everything, posting on the Twitter, posting on the YouTube, doing, like short of, like you said, short of maybe funding it, it was pretty much all Lagana at that point. So that is a hole that, like, I don't know that you can just say, all right, Storm, go edit the weekly show. And he's like, what? No, I don't know how to do that. Are you kidding? Like that. It's going to be just picking that up from where it was left off. I like, honestly, I'm kind of with you. I don't think it'll ever come back. I don't know how you just pick that up. I don't know how you just one day go, okay, we're back, and just have somebody that's ready to go. I mean, all that shit is, unless, I don't know. Yeah, like knowing video production on my end in my life or whatever, like I couldn't, if I left my job, I couldn't just straight up give somebody, my files and go, okay, there you go. Like there's a certain, art form to it. There's a certain, way that you went about it. There's a certain workflow that you had. There's, all that sort of stuff that I don't know that you could just hand it over to some person and say, okay, now you go and you do it. Like you could with booking, like you said. So I don't know what's going to happen there. I don't know.
And it'll all change too, because his fingerprints were on everything. I mean, he was the driving force behind everything: the 10 Pounds of Gold, the TV show, the video production. I know they have other people involved, like Josephus does some things. I mean, I think Josephus, if I recall, is very much involved in sort of the spoof television commercials and things like that, which kind of match his brain if you think about it, because he's kind of an out there guy, and those things are kind of zany. So, I mean, there's other people there that, part of their office or whatever, but that it's tricky for them to recover. And it's almost like now the COVID almost works in their favor a little, because they have time to figure it out and put new people in charge of new things and whatnot. And Lagana did defend himself. He put out a statement. Look, all of these people have a right to defend themselves, right? And then you have a right to tell them you have the right to continue to tell them to fuck off, but if you so choose, but they all have a right to defend themselves. That's one thing, and some have done better jobs than others. I mean, I don't know how you feel about the Mike Quackenbush 13-minute video.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Perfectly Quackenbush, I could say. Like, I expected nothing less from an absolute psychopath like Mike Quackenbush. So,
yeah, I mean, it's
the
and I
cuts.
guess
You're doing cuts. What are you doing? But he's a fucking psychopath, so I'm not surprised. I mean, it's exactly what I expected a Mike Quackenbush apology video to look like. So,
I mean,
he's a worker. He's always going to be a worker.
Years ago, I was doing research for a big Mike Quackenbush piece, and we never pulled the trigger on it because people wouldn't put their names on things, and I couldn't get things double sourced. And it's like, who are we? We have this dopey little website. Do we really want to incur the wrath of lawyers? And it's not worth it, right? So it's like, yeah, I had to be careful. I dipped my toes in like real journalism, and we just aren't in a position to, there's much bigger websites than us that stay away from stories because they're just afraid of litigation or whatever the case may be. And it was weird because reading a lot of the accusations against Chikara and against Quackenbush last week, like I know where they came from because I communicated with these people and they shared their stories with me years ago. And it's like, we had to sit on a lot of it.
People don't understand how it works in especially any form of journalism in a case. Like if you're the Washington Post or whatever, before you do a story or before you even start exploring a story that's even in this realm of like, hey, this person did criminal stuff or this person did this or whatever, you have a team of people, the legal team or whatever. We don't have a fucking legal team, you know what I mean? We have like 10 lawyers that write for us, but not enough to say, hey, if shit goes down, are you gonna you're gonna defend us? They're probably like, no, get out of here, like just don't do it. And like we're not in that position to say, you know what, Joe, fuck it, let's do it. We need to report this. We need to do this. without knowing that like it could fucking financially sink you and I, because it's like, I don't want to get into that. I really don't. Like, and you tried your best, like you really did. You got as far as you could before it was like, all right, look, do I really want to swim in this pond? Do I really want to incur this sort of wrath or whatever? And like you said, there's bigger websites than us that still don't even try to do that, just because unless you have that backing, unless you really truly can afford it, or you have legal backing, or you have all that sort of stuff, you just can't go out there and throw stuff out without really, really, really having that stabilization of a legal team or a lawyer or whatever. So
well, David Bixenspan talks about this all the time. He said, with Deadspin, he had the security and the knowledge that he'd have backup if shit was going to hit the fan, and like you're saying, stories being vetted and whatnot. And it's like, it's harder to write things independently or freelance or for your own websites when you don't have that insurance, backing you up, or a legal team backing you up, or people who know what they're talking about reading through your work and saying, you can say this, but you can't say this. You can't include this. Where did you get this? Who told you this? So, this is a problem. Well, not a problem, but this is just a process that's way above our heads and affects sites way bigger than ours. But so a lot of the Quackenbush stuff, and this isn't just us patting ourselves on the back. A lot of his stuff was known too. And in his case, I don't think people are viewing him as a monster in the same light as like a Joey Ryan, but certainly his reputation and the carefully crafted sort of persona that he's built for himself and his company were completely shattered.
Right. I don't put him on the heinous level that like Joey Ryan and Brandon Stroud were. I do put him on the manipulative psychopath, and those are different, I think. I don't think he's a heinous person, but I think he's a very calculated person. He's a very, his evil-ish, you know what I mean? Like not to the same extent of like that guy needs to be behind bars, but just like, my God, look at how long this man, kind of tricked people, worked with people, groomed people, manipulated people, that sort of stuff. Whatever term you want to use for that. That's where I kind of put Quackenbush versus like, your Joey Ryans and Brandon Strouds and whatnot. So
yeah, and I just think his personality was so carefully crafted too, like his whole persona. And I think that was all, and it fooled a lot of people. And, we have running bits about Chikara and we had that piece we were going to do, and we kind of stopped. We were at one time covering Chikara, and I think both of us at different points in time were Chikara fans. And the promotion just drifted away from what we like in pro wrestling. But it's like, with all of that said, I do genuinely feel bad for Chikara fans, because that was a carefully crafted world that was a lot different than anything else in wrestling, with very intricate storylines and a lot of emotional buy-in. Right?
Oh, you were when you were a Chikara fan, you were invested in every aspect of Chikara. Every person that worked for Chikara, every wrestler, every person that did anything in the company, you the ethos of Chikara you bought into. That's because you had to. That was the point of the like, we can say all the time, we like, Evolve or whatever. We like Gabe Sapolsky, but we like because of his booking. Like, nothing against Gabe, but like, I'm not going to jump off a fucking cliff if Gabe tells me to. But like, Chikara fans, you had to buy in 100%. You had to buy into Mike Quackenbush's vision for pro wrestling and the art form of pro wrestling and the art form that Chikara offered. And yeah, you had to be all invested in the seasons. It was a television show more so than, you know what I mean? Like they did seasons. They had season finales. They had season premieres. They had, that sort of stuff. So it was a different animal in that sense. And yeah, you had to buy in 100%. If you were going to be a Chikara fan, you had to invest in every aspect of Chikara. And invest in what it was speaking about and what it was doing and how it represented people and how it represented wrestling. Like, it wasn't just a company that you could say, hey, yeah, Chikara's cool. Like, I tried to do that, but you really, those fans that you're talking about, those deep Chikara fans, they were invested in every single aspect of that entire company.
And just with the intricate storytelling and very detail-oriented and everything matters and again, a lot of emotional buy-in. And like you're saying, sort of the a promotion that was carefully crafted for a different kind of fan. And it's just, and I do feel bad for those fans to some extent, because we take it for granted because we're so inside with a lot of this stuff. And sometimes, a lot of people just buy tickets to wrestling shows and don't think about wrestling again until they buy a ticket to their next wrestling show. And I do think that there are probably a lot of Chikara fans who had no idea that there were quiet whispers about the cult-like atmosphere and about Mike Quackenbush and all of that, because they just, they watched their, YouTube videos and they bought tickets to their shows and they followed the storylines, and that was the extent of their fanhood, and yeah, there were probably a lot of Chikara fans who were deep into the weeds like us and suspected that this day could come. Rich, we knew this day was coming. We always knew this day was coming. It was just a matter of when. And last week was just the perfect storm for everything to come out. But, Chikara is now dead. And Mike Quackenbush has removed himself as the coach of the Wrestle Factory. What does he call his school? Not Ford, I guess.
Who cares?
But, here's the thing about Quackenbush. And again, this is not a Joe Lanza value judgment. I don't think he's done in wrestling. I get the vibe there will be a Mike Quackenbush return in some form. I see the reaction to his apology, and while a lot of people are completely shitting on it, for like you're saying, like he did a 13-minute apology that was basically shot and edited like a YouTube fucking roast video with jump cuts and just weird, and he's using his promo voice. And man, if you're gonna apologize just sit down in front of a
fucking
camera.
Human being for 2 seconds. But I don't think he is. He's one of those, and it happens all the time in entertainment or whatever. Like, I don't know if Mike Quackenbush knows who the real Mike. I don't know if there is a real Mike Quackenbush. You know what I mean? Like, I think
he's using his "How We Make It" voice,
right,
inflection. And it's like, I don't know, man. But there's a lot of people who thought he came off very sincere and copped to everything and took ownership. And I don't know. I don't know, man. I have a feeling he survives. I think due to the level of allegations towards other people sort of making his look small in comparison, and the fact that I think a lot of people bought into his apology, and the fact that he's got, despite the shattered see, I don't think he'll ever be the bastion of woke wrestling hood that he was
that's
before.
Probably done. That's
over.
Should be.
That's
Hopefully.
over forever.
Let's hope.
Yeah, that's done forever because he's broken that. Look, none of us bought it to begin with, and the people who did no longer buy it and trust it. So that's over. If he does something moving forward in wrestling, he can't be the bastion of the good fans. He can't be that anymore. Because those fans don't no longer trust him. And quite honestly, those fans don't trust anybody in wrestling. I think this ends that for wrestling for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. But, between David Starr and Mike Quackenbush, who, a lot of people were side-eyeing the two of them anyway, but for the people who bought into both of their rhetorics, I mean, there's a lot of people who are going to be done with wrestling, period. And there's a lot of people who are never going to trust wrestlers for a very long time when it comes to those sorts of issues.
Yeah, and sorry, I'll finish your point, and then I had one thing real quick.
And I was just going to say Joey Ryan to a small extent too. But Joey Ryan, I think nobody bought his woke routine. I mean, I think we all realized a guy who has, gotten over by having people touch his dick as being a little disingenuous when it comes to, I am, a bastion of quality progressive behavior.
Right. I think you'd be surprised at how many people actually thought that was good. You know what I mean? Like, because it was so intergender too, and it's kind of the same stuff we always like. Again, people that listen to this show, you and I don't think we ever thought that Joey Ryan having a bunch of women wrestlers grab his dick every day was like good. But I think you're underestimating how many people thought that that showed progression right. Or whatever. But yeah. The one thing you mentioned, like the wrestling fans, the oh my god, this person's that person's woke, or that person does it right, or that sort of stuff. Those fans being gone and maybe never coming back is definitely one thing. You had mentioned this. I don't know if you actually said it on Twitter or if you said it during your Monday news recap, but I think one of the big things that's going to come out of this, and I think it's probably ultimately a good thing that comes out of this awful week and all this horrible activity and horrible behavior by everybody is, and it's something we've talked about for a long time too, the relationship of fans and wrestlers for a long time. And I know a lot of the accusations are, trainer to student or wrestler to, authority figure, that sort of stuff. But there is a lot of like fan to wrestler stuff in here as well. And like some of that aspect of the fan to wrestler stuff is never going to go away. That is as old as wrestling has ever been. Is
you mean groupies?
Right. Wrestlers are going to, be attracted to fans. Fans are going to be attracted to wrestlers. That is always going to be an aspect of pro wrestling. There's nothing you're going to be able to do to shut that down in any
That's an aspect
field.
Of entertainment.
Yeah, sports, concerts, music, anything. The fans are going to want to, engage in activities with the performers, and the performers are going to be more than willing to oblige with that on certain levels. That is never going away. But and listen,
and very quickly, not to cut you off, but if you're a single man and they're a single woman and you're engaging in consensual acts after the game or the show or the event or whatever, there's nothing wrong with that either. And I don't think you're saying that there is, but I just wanted to make that clear before people, clip your audio and try to make you out like a monster.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But I think one aspect that you've always talked about is the relationship of, we're friends with the wrestlers. People on Twitter we're friends with the wrestlers, or the wrestler comes out after the show and he's hanging out with the fans and doing that sort of stuff, and we're buddy, or I'm friend. Like that, I do wonder if maybe wrestlers are going to think twice about that. If fans should maybe think twice about that, and maybe we go back to an aspect where you're still going to have your post-show, this guy, that girl, this woman, that guy, you know what I mean? Like that stuff is always going to be there. But I do wonder if we're buddy, we're on the same level. I'm playing this character, you're my fan, like let's hang out. I do wonder if that starts to get broken down a little bit, where wrestlers maybe say, you know what, I don't want to get involved with, people after the show. I don't want to go to a post-show bar. I don't want to do that sort of stuff. And maybe fans say, you know what, no, these guys, they're fucking wrestlers, but they're not my friend. I'll come and watch them perform their art, but I don't really want to hang out with them after the show because I frankly don't trust them. And I do wonder if we start to see that a little bit more, because over the last few years, and Twitter and social media has caused a lot of that as well, where those barriers have been broken down and wrestlers and fans have become sort of one. We're all in this together type thing. And I do wonder if it goes back to, you're paying a ticket to see me perform and that's it. That's where our relationship ends. Is you pay your $20, you sit down, you cheer, you boo, you do whatever, and then you're done and I'm done and that's it. That's the extent of our relationship.
Listen, you and I have talked about merch table culture for how many years now? And we've approached it from the aspect of it, without question, lessens the star power of these wrestlers. Merch table. And when I talk about merch table culture, I'm talking about 30 seconds after your match, you're wearing basketball shorts and you're at the table selling your T-shirts. And I get that that's a huge chunk of their income. I understand that. And this is why, Rich, we said, we can't put the toothpaste back in the tube with this, right? Because merch has become such a big chunk of what these wrestlers are making. Right. And in a lot of cases, wrestlers will take bookings well under value because they know in a particular promotion they're going to sell a lot of T-shirts. But we have always approached it from, well, it makes these guys come across as less of a star, on the indie level, because we go back to the days of ROH. I go all the way back to ECW in terms of live shows. And Rich, how many times did you see Samoa Joe mingling with fans at an ROH show?
Yeah,
how many times?
Literally zero. Yeah. No.
The answer is zero. How many times do you see Bryan Danielson mingling around with fans at an ROH? Never. I mean, it just wasn't – merch table culture didn't exist then. And the stars understood how to remain stars. Was the first time you saw Bryan Danielson at an ROH show is when – Final Countdown hit for the main event. That's the first time you laid eyes on him. I mean, and this doesn't have anything to do with speaking out, but we've talked about this a million times. Merch table culture has killed star power on the indie scene. But what it has done is it has enhanced this idea that you're friends with the wrestler. Because they're going to chat you up at the table, and I'm not saying they're always disingenuous. There's a lot of friendly wrestlers out there who are good guys, who love talking to the fans. But as we now know, there were also many predators who were grooming fans.
Where we're using that merch table as a way to get you into their whatever, their sphere, whatever you want to say,
And people are going to say we're victim blaming, and we're not. And you can say that all you want, but you're wrong. But it's like merch table culture has perpetuated a lot of this, and after party culture. Why are you? I mean, after parties have got to go. They've got to go at least for a little while in light of all of this. I mean, you've got promotions charging fans money to attend parties with wrestlers after shows, in some cases charging money so that these fans can go to these parties and then, these wrestlers can all attempt to fuck them. That's what's going on at these after parties in a lot of cases. And listen, after last week, you can't tell me I'm wrong. I have the high ground right now. Maybe in a month I won't, maybe in 6 months, a year. But right now I have the high ground in this discussion. That's what these after parties were, especially a lot of the ones in Europe, as we now know. These were orchestrated events so the wrestlers could attempt to fuck women, and in some cases, women that were minors, as young as 16, which I get some of the local laws. It wasn't technically illegal, okay? But if you're a 35-year-old man fucking a 16-year-old, legal or illegal, I have an issue there. And in a lot of cases, that's what these after parties were. And look, I talked to someone who I consider a friend who lives in Europe who was saying, look, it's not the same as the United States. A lot of these indie shows and these promotions, we all live in the same town and we're all the same age. And it's just different because, you work with these people, you went to school with them, the show's over, you go to the after party and then you see them around town and it's just closer knit. It's not like in the United States where it's so spread out. And we have to understand that too. The culture's a little different there. But I do think that we've got to pump the brakes on the after. But look, I have no problem with after parties after wrestling shows. How about just with the wrestlers and the crew? Why are fans at these things to begin with? Right? And especially now. Okay? I think it's a bad look. Am I pearl clutching a little? Maybe. I don't know. That's for the listener to decide. But if I'm running an indie promotion, I could tell you that there are going to be no more promotion-sponsored after parties with my shows ever again.
Yeah, if my crew, what I'm doing is my crew and the wrestlers want to go to a bar, cool. I'm calling that bar and saying, hey, our guys are coming. Shut down the back room for my crew. You know what I mean? Like, I'm telling you right now, if I'm running an indie promotion, after parties are dead. In light of what's been going on, at least for the time being, they're dead. They're just got. And I'm going to tell you another thing I do if I'm running an indie promotion. Main event's over, bell rings. Every fan is to be escorted out of the building before a single wrestler comes out from the back. Because that mingling around after the show and that shit has just got to stop now for a while. And it's just – and if you're a wrestler, get the fuck out of fans' DMs. Stop. Yeah. Right.
Just stop. What are you doing? Okay? It's just this I call it merch table culture. It has to stop because it has clearly spiraled out of control. And it's just I don't trust the wrestling business anymore when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah, and that's one thing I do want to, because I did see you taking some flack on Twitter last week too when you were talking about why are we still training minors in wrestling, and some people took that as you saying it's the minors' fault for getting and that's such horseshit. What it's obviously clear to all of us that the solution is to stop raping people. Yes, of course, nobody is arguing that, of course, but that is such just a basic boilerplate thing to say.
Surface level shit.
Stop raping children. Yeah, no fucking shit. Of course, that's the easy way to solve this issue. Of course.
If I say maybe we shouldn't book minors anymore, and your comeback is, well, maybe we should get rid of the abusers, you're saying nothing.
Yes. Okay.
Don't you realize that you're saying nothing? That's an empty sentiment. It's just an empty platitude that means nothing because we all agree that we need to get rid of the abusers. It means nothing what you're saying. You're saying words that equal zero when you say that. That's the baseline. That shouldn't need to be said. Every time we try to come up with a solution for this stuff, we shouldn't have to preface it with, well, we need to get rid of the abusers, but we can also, no, we all agree we need to get rid of the abusers. That's baseline, like Rich just said. So yeah, and I will not back down from that stance.
No, and I think I think you're 100% right on that too. And I think Jordan Grace was one that talked about it, and she'd obviously been
Rita Scott.
Yeah, So there were quite a
minors.
few that backed you up. I know Dan Barry was actually an interesting conversation. He initially started to kind of argue, but to his credit, started to listen a little bit and said, "Oh, ultimately, I do agree." What
Can
you're
I
saying.
talk about that for
Yeah,
for a
go
second?
ahead, because that was actually I enjoyed that. That was a nice conversation. So
I don't mean to keep cutting you off.
yeah, no,
but
it's fine. No, this is an interesting conversation. This is it's just flowing here.
Every person who came at me for saying that maybe minors don't belong in pro wrestling until there's some fucking regulations
Until the
and
wrestling
oversight.
can actually fucking regulate itself,
Because wrestling has proven that it cannot regulate itself.
Wrestling can't handle it anymore, so now we need to do something else about it. So
anyone who came at me for that with the victim blaming stuff or the critique or you're taking away children's dreams or whatever the fuck, like I give a fuck about that. Okay, if you're 16 years old and your dream is to be a pro wrestler, it's not going to kill you to wait 14 months. Okay, it really isn't. Okay, and they've proven I can't. But the point here is anyone who's come at me with that, who then, Rich, how many times did I say, hey, listen, you're coming at me. How about we have a conversation? And then when I talk to these people and we had a series of tweets, we all came to this. We're all on the same side here, And the Dan Barry conversation was a perfect example of that. He came at me guns blazing because we're all tense right now. We hate what's going on. But then we exchanged some ideas, and at the end of the day, we were in agreement. And it's like we're all on the same side. We got to do something here. It can't just be the status quo. I won every single person over who challenged me on that to some level. Maybe they were still iffy on the idea of completely keeping the minors out, but they at least saw where I was coming from, and it's from a good place. Okay? Where else with no oversight and regulation can children just commingle with adults in this sort of environment? It doesn't exist, Rich. People were just making such horrible examples. Oh, well then why let kids play sports? Well, here's the thing. Kids play sports with people their own age and people their own sex. It's not co-ed. You're 8 all right, 8 is out there, but your 15-year-old daughter doesn't play soccer with a 37-year-old man. That's the difference in an unregulated environment where they're being physical with each other on top of everything else. Let's put abuse aside. Let's put sexual abuse aside. Why are children taking bumps at 15, 16 years old and getting concussions, low-grade concussions, which we know they're getting from pro wrestling, from taking bumps? This is your topic, Rich. You've been talking about it for years.
Absolutely.
More dangerous than the full-on concussions are these repeated low. Why are we doing that to unfully formed fucking brains and bodies to begin with? Outside of abuse, what other sport or activity? And I'm sure someone could come up, but how many other sports or activities are there where it's a completely unregulated environment that we're sending our children into with adults? Okay, there's child labor laws for a reason. Do child labor laws intersect with wrestling in any way, shape, or form? Can I book a 16-year-old on a pro wrestling show tomorrow and hold that show at 10 o'clock at night and put that kid in the semi-main event at 12:30? Who can stop me from doing that? In a locker room full of sexual predators? Being trained by God knows who has no accreditation or no background check? Anyone could be a wrestling trainer as it stands now. I've been wrestling for 6 years, and I'm a fucking creep. And I've got gigabytes of kiddie porn on my computer. I can go be a wrestling. No one's going to stop me.
Yeah, there's one that's still doing it. I just got an email from him yesterday. So down in Florida, good old friend that still survives everything and keeps on going on. And
yeah, at least he's known. You're talking about chasing rants.
Yeah, right. Who hasn't stopped at all? It's like, yeah, this guy's a fucking creep, and he's like, yeah, all right, cool.
You know what though? With rants, at least he's known. And and his shit is on like public record. And if you send your kid there like Izzy, you're a fucking psychopath. Okay? But at least you know what you're getting into. There's hundreds of other scenarios where no one knows what they're getting into. Right. How can we just let anyone train pro wrestlers with no certification, no oversight, no regulations, and then, oh, by the way, people telling me it's okay to keep sending kids there? Are you fucking out of your minds? Until there's oversight and regulation, shut down the minors. No training, no booking. It isn't going to kill these kids to wait till they're adults. And then, look, we got to draw a line somewhere. You want to make a decision once you're legally an adult? I am not going to step in and stop you. But isn't it our job as a society to protect our most vulnerable? To protect children from making bad choices? isn't that our job? Am I really this wildly off base on this? I mean, it's just, especially after what we saw last week, and you're still going to advocate and say that
right, you still have faith that these older men are going to be able to be handling minors and have no issue whatsoever. And that's the thing where yes, we all agree that the best thing to happen was be the abusers stop abusing, of course, or the abusers go away and they never come back. Yes. But that is probably a lot harder than we think it is, because there are still hundreds of people that have not been named, hundreds of people that are ready to, like that is almost going to be a never ending cycle. But if we stop giving them easy access to minors, there's a good chance that will hopefully start soon, weeding them out, and then the abusers won't come. And they just don't have the easy access to abuse. You know what I mean? Like, and it sucks. Like, it sucks that they're probably, like you said, there are dreams that will be dashed or whatever, but you know what? Let's wait 2 fucking years for your dream to start, because like I'm with you. I don't trust the wrestling business anymore. If I had a 16-year-old kid, I'd say, fuck no, you're not going to a training school with some 38-year-old dude that I know nothing about. You're not. Like, just straight up, you're not going to do that. So it's, it happens in all walks of life too. Similar with the Catholic Church. Like, yeah, it'd be great if priests stopped raping, altar boys, but that didn't happen, and it wasn't going to happen overnight, and it's taken quite a while for that to even start weeding itself out. But what it needed first was oversight, rules, looks, investigations, that sort of stuff, and that's where we're at right now. But the easiest thing we can do right now in the short term is say, okay, look, let's not give these fucking predators access to 15 and 16-year-olds, while they're still, growing and developing and all that sort of stuff. We take that access away, and then we'll work on the other steps too. The speaking out was a great start to the whole movement. Let's go one step further, and then we'll keep going and keep going and keep going, and then hopefully in due time we can start trusting this wrestling business again, because right now you can't fucking trust it. And anybody who still trusts the wrestling business, oh, it's okay, I'll send my 15-year-old daughter to go get trained by some guy. Like, dude, I don't know what to say. I guess you're a better man than I, because I don't fucking trust anybody anymore in wrestling. So, and
that's not to say that there aren't good schools and there aren't good trainers and there aren't schools that do it the right way and do have the proper insurance. What are wrestling schools required? See, that's the thing. There's no oversight.
Dude, I don't think there's literally. I don't know about most schools, nothing. But there's really. I mean, email the guy. Here's where you show up. Here's how you pay me. That's as far as I know about training at a wrestling school. At least the ones that I'm aware of.
And that's not saying that some of them don't take steps that they're not legally required to take to make sure that they're doing a good job. I don't want to throw all of them under the bus. You know what I mean? It's like, at the same time, I don't want to throw out some names of ones that I think are good, because there's stories coming out every day and I don't want to get burned. That's where we're at here. But it's like, until you can tell me that every wrestling school is required to have insurance, is required to have accreditations for the trainers, is required to have background checks for the trainers, is required to have special classes segregated from minors, is required to have female trainers for female wrestlers, is required to have some kind of government oversight and check-ins and safety checks and building temperatures, and and just basically is just have the same requirements as any other business that's going to be handling minors. I am perfectly okay with standing behind my stance that minors have no business in wrestling. And until you can come back to me and tell me and give me a good reason why minors need to be involved in wrestling, you can call me a victim blamer all you want. It's not going to affect me at all. Tell me why minors need to be involved in pro wrestling. Why? Why is there a need? Why must minors be involved in this? There's no one has been able to successfully answer that question,
especially after this week, and the heinous stories out there about so many people that
regulate it, have real oversight, real accreditations, and then I'm okay with it.
Yeah, and who should really be the good ones, the good trainers, the good schools, whatever. Those should be the ones at the top of the list, saying, you know what, we're going to do. We're going to do this. We're going to set the standards for what we're going to do, and yeah, then I would start trusting the business a little bit more if those ones come out there and say that. But yeah, like you're saying, the people I cannot, after reading that last week of like, no, it's fine. Like, yeah, dude, what are you? How could you trust anybody after this week? How?
And I can tell you, even if all of that is done and we're training minors in at least some kind of regulated environment, because nothing will stop abuse, but you can at least attempt to mitigate it.
Right.
I still advocate not booking people until they're 18. I don't think people should be wrestling. I don't think children should be wrestling on pro wrestling shows. Again, maybe I'm pearl clutching here. Maybe you disagree. Why should minors wrestle? Give me a good reason why minors belong in a pro wrestling locker room, an independent wrestling pro locker room, with what we know goes on in there now after the last week. Why? What's the reason that this has to be a thing? Why can't they wait till they're an adult? And if you really want me to go crazy, you want me to really go crazy, Rich?
Go ahead. Fuck it. Do it live.
If you're going to train under the age of 21, you should show some sort of proof that you're pursuing some other form of education. You're either still in high school, or you're going to college, or you're going to a trade school, or you have because wrestling cannot be your number one plan. It cannot be your number one plan. I would even throw something like that in there. And maybe that's going too far. But after last week, I don't think anything's going too far. I don't like the idea of a 17-year-old waltzing into a wrestling school with stars in their eyes thinking they're going to be wrestling The Rock at WrestleMania. I don't like that idea. Okay? If I'm a wrestling trainer, I'm going to say, you still in school? No. Well, then come back to me when you're in school. Come back to me when you're pursuing a GED, or you're back in high school, or you're out of college, or you're out of trade school. I'm not touching you until you're 21 unless you're pursuing something else. I would even take it that far. I don't even think that's a crazy idea. In light of all of this, again, we have the high ground now after last week. The pro wrestling business does not have the high ground in any of these debates after what we just saw. So that's why I will not back down on my stance that minors do not belong in wrestling until there is real regulation and oversight. And you can paint me as a bad person for that. That's fine. I'm not backing down because I don't think that stance is a ridiculous one. I'm fired up. I'm standing up.
Yeah, that's jeez.
And look, if I, like you just said, if you are a decent trainer with a decent school, flash that shit.
Yeah, now's the time to puff your chest out. Yeah, to go.
We have female trainers. We have specific training classes for minors where minors do not intermingle. Children do not intermingle with adults. We have insurance that we can prove, and we have accreditations, and we give all of our trainers background checks, and we have a safety record of X amount of injuries and X amount of years. And how about we broadcast that if you're a good trainer with a good school, instead of, hey, we have a guy who's wrestling on Impact Wrestling right now. Or, have you heard of so-and-so who's working for New Japan? Stop broadcasting, people who have come through your school who are on TV right now, and instead broadcast why your school is different from the fucking cesspools that we had to hear about last week. How about that? For the ones that are doing it the right way.
Anything else you got? I don't even think we named half the people that have actually been.
Yeah, it's
the worst part. Yeah, anybody that can trust the business on this week, more power to you. But
I don't know. I don't even think we were planning on talking about this. And it's like you almost, it's like you have to address these things, but it's like with the thing with the victim blaming. It's like you're afraid almost to approach some of these topics because people everyone's on edge right now. And we all just assume the worst. And that's what Dan Barry said to me, too, at one point. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he's like, hey, look, maybe I was aggressive because we're all fucking pissed off. And
yeah, it's fucking garbage. It's terrible.
And maybe we need to stop yelling at each other and listen to each other like we just did. That was the gist of what he said in his tweet. And I agree, and at that point we came to an understanding. I wasn't even angry at him. Like, I was annoyed that he quote tweeted me and tried to show me up. I mean, that part of it annoyed me. But I took a deep breath and I just tried to have a conversation with the guy. And he wasn't, I'm not mad. I wasn't mad at him once we talked. It's like, because you realize you're coming from the same place. And someone like him who does train wrestlers, I'm sure, is a little bit of defensiveness there.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
And that's natural because he's reading this and he's like, well, why the fuck can't I try? Like, I'm a good guy and I fucking train kids all the time. And I understand that too. Like, it was a rough week for everyone in wrestling, in particular the wrestlers who do keep their hands clean and do keep their nose clean and do things the right way. And I'm sure there's a level of defensiveness there. But again, like you noted, there were plenty of wrestlers who agreed with me, whether it was Veda Scott or Jordan Grace, or there were others too that were like, from our life experience, minors don't belong anywhere near pro wrestling. And it's like, and it's just, I don't know. I just feel like there needs to be oversight and regulation before they are. I'm not completely against the idea, but not in this environment.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we just want to be able to trust wrestling and actually, think that what we're seeing is I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the right way to describe it, but yeah, it was a tough week. It was a week where you definitely just like have to look yourself in the mirror. And like you said, people like the people that are doing it right, they need to be the loudest voices right now. They now have the high ground to say, look, here's what we're doing. Here's what we're going to change. Here, this is the week for great change. And like you said, just putting out platitudes of, hey, stop abusing, that does nothing. That moves nothing forward. It's just a way to get likes on a tweet. But like, now's the week, and now's the time for real action and real movement. So
how about get rid of the abusers? You know what that is?
Yeah,
That's
it's 1,000 likes on social media. It doesn't mean fucking shit, because the abusers aren't going to go, gosh darn it, you're right, I'm going to stop abusing children because that person tweeted it and they got 1,000 likes. God, as much as I would love to continue abusing, I'm just not going to do it anymore because that tweet got a lot of likes. Thank you for telling me I shouldn't. Yeah. Hey, criminals, stop being criminals. Oh, okay. All right. Got it.
You figured it out.
You got me again.
You've solved the puzzle. We need to get rid of the abusers. That was
every abuser goes, damn it. We've been found out. No. Well, that's it for me. I guess I can't abuse anymore because you've tweeted that we should stop abusing. So I'm done. I'm not going to abuse. Yeah. You got to action.
It's typical social media. What was I lost my train of thought, but people say it all the time. It's just empty platitudes. Like you're saying, it's social media activism. That's the term. That's what it is. It's just, you throw out some tweets and you sit back and crack your knuckles and you wait to see how many likes you get, but it doesn't mean anything. It's a clap tweet. Saying get rid of the abusers is a clap tweet. That's what it is. Rich knows all about the clap tweets. You love those clap tweets.
I love them, yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I guess we should talk about some actual wrestling at some point on the show.
Let's do that. Let's jump into we were going to jump into the New Japan Cup here right now, and I've not seen the matches from this morning. July 3rd, the semifinals happened. It was Okada and Hiromu and Evil versus Sonata. I have not seen those. You have, so we'll talk about those a little bit. I should mention as well, voicesofwrestling.com/Patreon, also patreon.com/voicesofwrestling. You were doing daily New Japan Cup audio as well, reviewing the show. So if you want to, as quickly, those are getting up pretty quickly after the shows as well. So a great way to keep up, get your recommendations, figure out what you think of the tournament so far. So I'm not gonna we're not gonna go match by match or show by show or whatever, because obviously you can do that at patreon.com/voicesofwrestling. But overall thoughts on New Japan's Empty Arena New Japan Cup so far, as we're now done with the Empty Arena stuff for now, I guess, because New Japan going to Osaka starting next weekend, and we'll have fans half or a quarter, or no, it's a third, right? A third filled Osaka Joe Hall or whatever. But what do you think?
About 3,000.
Yeah, fans. Somewhere in that range. But hopefully this is it for Empty Arena. God, fingers crossed. But what did you think of New Japan's Empty Arena shows so far?
I think that well, first of all, can I do a quick programming?
Oh, absolutely.
I think I'm going to do – we're just going to talk about the semifinals here. I'm not going to do a paywall show. So I think it would be redundant, to review the matches twice. So is that okay with you?
That's absolutely – yeah, I haven't seen them yet, so I can't really contribute much. But, yeah, that's fine.
I don't want to do the same thing twice, So and I don't think we should just blow it off either here. So, because how are we supposed to talk about what's coming up if we can't talk about what happened? So, I know I told everybody I would do paywall shows through the semifinals, basically through all of the Empty Arena, but I'm going to waive that. We'll just do it here and talk to semifinals. But overall thoughts, look, I'm really starting to struggle with the empty building.
I'm done. I'm done. I'm tapping out. I can't do it anymore.
I know you've been away, and I don't know if you're sitting there, refreshing your Patreon feed to listen to me babble about these matches every night. So I don't know if you've heard my thoughts about the New Japan Empty Arena, but I haven't been a fan of it. I think it's kind of lifeless. I don't think it's been as bad as Noah because they've kept the matches a more reasonable length, and I think that the announcer enthusiasm has been better, but I don't think it's been on the level of, All Japan or definitely not AEW or I thought AAA did a really nice job too. I forgot. What did you think of AAA's empty?
Oh, I loved
stuff?
it. Yeah, I thought they were fucking great. Yeah, we talked about it on the show.
So,
I thought I'd put them right in. I don't know where my exact rankings are, but they're definitely in at least the top 5 or top 3. It's like AAA, All Japan, AEW. I think are my 3 favorites. And then, like you said, by just pure attrition, like, your 0-1s and your other, just because this is like no different. Like when you talk about the difference of having fans and no fans, 2AW is kind of like, whatever. Like, it wasn't like a good presentation, but it wasn't any worse than their normal presentation. So, but in terms of like people that usually have fans, I think AAA, All Japan and AEW are my top 3, and yeah, I think New Japan's just slightly out of there. Like, I don't think I hate it as much as you do, but it's certainly not in the top half for sure.
No, I don't put it in the bottom of the barrel either. Like, I really hate, like, Noah is difficult to watch, and it's because the matches are like 30 minutes long. It's just too much, and I think WWE has been bottom of the barrel. It took them so long to add fans, and now they can't even get that right. Like, the people they have in their shows behind the plexiglass, it just feels so inorganic. How much of that have you seen? Maybe not much since you've been gone, but
a little bit. But yeah, I hate that a lot. I almost hate that more than when it was just empty because it's so weird. Yeah,
it feels forced and inorganic. So I don't like that. But New Japan hasn't been as bad as those couple of companies, I think. But it is starting to wear on me. I'm glad that it's behind us, at least for now. Now, I'm not going to make any predictions on COVID moving forward. How can you? But, the next New Japan we see will have fans, about 3,000 fans in the building. And that's such a welcome just to add atmosphere to the matches and to give these wrestlers a chance to build matches properly, to get crowd reactions and whatnot is very important. But my issues with New Japan's empty arena aside, I think it's been an okay tournament. I have 7 notebook matches, most of them low end. Today's show, Okada Hiromu was a big disappointment for me. It looks like a lot of people agree. It wasn't a bad match. It was a good match. But when you've got Okada Hiromu, especially for the first time, you're not expecting a good match. You're expecting a great match. I mean, I would expect those two guys to have a match of the year level match, even without fans. Didn't reach those heights. It was just a disappointing match. I think I went like 3.5 on it or something, which again, it's still a really good match. Mm-hmm. But what are you expecting when Okada and Hiromu?
Right,
you're not expecting a 3.5 star match. You're expecting a fucking killer match, and they didn't reach those heights. So there have been a couple matches. I thought Zack Sabre Jr. and Ibushi was a little disappointing too.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked by that one. I didn't hear anybody talk about it, and I was just like, "Oh, that's weird. I haven't seen any talk about it." And then I watched it, and I'm like, "Oh, I guess that's why." Because it was a match. It was good. Yeah, like everything was good, but yeah, it didn't. Yeah, when you think Ibushi and Zack Sabre Jr., you kind of in your brain think that you're gonna get elite level stuff, and it wasn't that at all.
But where you and I left off 2 weeks ago was with Nagata Suzuki, which we both loved, and I think we also talked about Hiromu dragging Hanma to a really good match. Mm-hmm. But after you I don't think we talked about Sho and Shingo. Which
we have not. No, we have not. Let's talk about it. Jesus.
Go ahead. The floor is yours. People have heard my thoughts.
I think I tweeted out when I watched it that to me was the perfect empty arena match. I think now that we can maybe, hopefully, finally, fingers crossed, put the close the doors on an empty arena in Japan. That's the top match in the empty arena. I think they did everything that you need to do for an empty arena. Perfect pacing, perfect work, the right amount of noise. They didn't go around the ring and brawl. They kept everything kind of in the ring. They kept everything impactful. They kept the kickouts at a nice time. They timed everything. I thought that was just, I think there's a certain ceiling on where you can go with empty arena. So I didn't go like 5 stars with it, but I think I went like 4.5 or something like that, which I think is honestly the ceiling for empty arena. Like I think legit the perfect empty arena match, and let's hope that will kind of cap it off, and that will be it, and that will be the last one that really, sets the stage, and now we can just move on to arena stuff again and get back to it. But yeah, that I just thought it was a tremendous pro wrestling match, and Shingo was fantastic in it, and Sho, I mean, that was his real coming out party. That was the moment when I officially, and I've always been, I've always, on this podcast and in the New Japan ebooks or whatever, I've always said, I know Sho's probably got the more superstar potential, but let's not say Yo doesn't, or let's not bury Yo, or let's not do, like, I right, that match is when I had to finally say, you know what, Sho's the dude. Sho's a fucking superstar on the way. On the way. You know what I mean? Like, that dude is going to be a star. I don't know what Yo's going to do. I don't know. Yo might be fine. Yo might be the junior ace for 10 years or whatever. But you watch that match and you go, oh, Sho is going to be the star of that team. Sho will absolutely be the one that in 5 years he'll be the quote unquote Shawn and Marty. You know what I mean? Like, after that match, it was just like, holy shit, this guy's really good, and he's figuring it out, and he's peaking at the right time, and he's getting the opportunities, and it's clear New Japan sees him. You know, with that match and with the other stuff that he's done in this tournament, it's clear New Japan sees him as the bigger of the two stars when they have booked those two shockingly 50-50 and shockingly kind of to the same level. We read about it every single year in the ebook. Is, you know, I sit down and I think I've written the Yo thing the last 4 years. I think you've written the Sho thing the last 4 years as well. And we always sit down and we always talk about it, and we look at the falls and they're like, perfect. It's exactly the same. Yo gets 15 falls, Sho gets 15 falls. Yo gets 14 falls, Sho gets 15. And it's like, you know what I mean? It's like difference of one or whatever. They booked them pretty much 50-50. But it feels like with this New Japan Cup, and it feels like this year, and it feels like the way Sho is presenting himself, the bulk that he's added, that sort of stuff, that it's clear one of those two is the one that they think is going to be the star, and it's clearly Sho. And after that match, how do you not say that that's going to be Sho? So yeah, I liked it, Joe. I liked the match. In case you're curious.
Your thoughts mirror mine. I mean, anybody who listened to my paywall stuff, you basically just gave the same speech I gave about Sho. You know, I feel like people think I'm beating up on Yo, but I'm not. It's not an insult to say that I think he can be a top junior in the company for a decade. I mean, I really, you know, I think he'll have a couple junior title runs. I don't think it's an insult to say that one guy just has potential, you know, money drawing potential, and the other, I don't see it the same way, at least at this stage. And that's not saying I don't think Sho is any kind of a lock to be a superstar or a money drawing guy or even a heavyweight or anything like that. But he has potential to reach those heights. That doesn't look, there's been thousands of wrestlers who've had that potential and have never gotten there. And I would have been wrong about a lot of guys over the years who never eventually. So who knows with Sho? But there's a presence there with him that I just don't think Yo has. And I think that Yo, honestly, I think there's stories that can be told with him. I mean, they teased that LIJ thing years ago, and I don't think that's over with. You know, so, but that's probably a conversation for another day. But even when you look at these other New Japan Cup shows, Yo has disappeared. He lost his first round match and hasn't been heard from again. They've got Sho in all of the tag matches. On today's show, they shot an angle to set up the Never title challenge that he's presumably going to get against Shingo. Because remember, Shingo was going to defend the Never title against Toa Henare. Now, Toa Henare, because of COVID, is out of the picture. So I think they're moving the Sho into that spot. Now, Sho may have gotten a Never title match anyway at some point, but I think Henare was next in line.
Yeah, for sure. No, definitely.
And it's a shame the COVID is a bad timing for Henare because he was going to get a genuine push this year, finally. So that'll be delayed a bit. But yeah, that match was incredible. I went 4.5, and I can't wait for their Never match because the first two matches have been awesome. So there's no reason the Never match won't match it either. But that's been the best match so far. And, on today's show, I guess talk about it quickly before we talk about the finals coming up. But Evil beat Sonata, and Okada, as expected, beat Hiromu. I talked about the Okada-Hiromu match a little bit, and he won it again with the Cobra Clutch. So he had the Cobra Clutch. Hiromu got out of it. He did hit a Rainmaker, but then instead of pinning him, put him back into the Cobra Clutch. I really liked the finish of the match from that aspect because Okada showed a real level of viciousness at the end of the match. And because he could have put him away with the Rainmaker, but chose to put him back in the Cobra Clutch. What do you think of Okada establishing, because he has clearly established a new finish in this tournament. This move is going to be over. I talked about this already a little behind the paywall. I think that it was long overdue because the Rainmaker's been kicked out of a ton now, and he's done a lot of storytelling with the Rainmaker, with the wrist clutch stuff. I think this might have been a little overdue to establish another move. What do you think of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw him bubbling up and doing that, many, many years ago with, what was it, the Red Ink, I think was the name of it at that time.
Yeah.
This was, 4 or 5 years ago at this point, and we kind of all assumed that they were establishing the Red Ink throughout I think it was either through the G1 or some sort of, I forget, I think it was the G1, but I forget exactly what tournament it was, where he was kind of establishing that, and we kind of, I even think I wrote an article on the website about, okay, well, what he's doing is he's establishing this because, Tanahashi he hasn't been able to beat Tanahashi with the Rainmaker. Tanahashi's kicked out of the Rainmaker, so he needs another move. He needs to go to the well again and figure out a new move, and he established that move. He did it, and then he just kind of like dropped it, and it didn't become another part of his arsenal, and it wasn't a regular, finish, and I'm somebody, and I know you are as well, and we talk about it all the time. I love when guys have multiple finishes. One thing I love about AEW right now is that like every guy has like 2 finishes, and against the lower card guys, they won't use their top finish. They'll use their other finish, and when they need to use the top finish, they'll use the top finish. But they don't. Every single match doesn't have to end with the top finish, and I like that. I really like that. So I hope that Okada does do this, and I hope that he continues to establish that move can also finish it, because it just adds a different dynamic. And Okada is a guy who at age 32, we've seen this guy wrestle now for, God, what is it, fucking 7-8 years at this point of like top level, God, maybe even 9, right? Or no, 2012 was when he came. Yeah, so like 8 years of like high level matches from this guy, to the point where he does need to kind of change it up a little bit. He does need to sort of throw a curveball and do something different in his closing stretches, because he's going to run out of things to do. He's going to run out of ways to kind of construct, the finish of a match. So I love the idea that now he's established, hey, I can finish you off with this. I just hope that he keeps that energy up, and continues to establish it throughout the year, and finishes matches off after the New Japan Cup with this move, and uses it, uses it to set up the Rainmaker, uses the Rainmaker to set this move up. Like that stuff is really, really cool, and I hope that he has sort of addressed that and said, okay, look, I need to kind of change things up a little bit and do something different, because I just can't rest on my laurels at age 32. You know what I mean? I can't just do that. So I love it. I liked it when he did it with the Red Ink or whatever, and I think almost every wrestler in the world should have at least 2 finishes or 2 or 3 finishes that they can finish somebody off with, because it lets the match be more interesting and more fun. You're not just sitting there waiting for the setup to their finisher. That when they get ready to do a move, it might be this move, it might be that move, it might be I just think it's way easier to construct a match if you do that. So I don't know why more people don't do it, to be honest.
Can't you picture a spot in either the Tokyo Dome or King of Pro Wrestling, wherever, I'm talking big match setting, Okada Naito locks him in that Cobra Clutch, Naito fading out. I mean, that's going to be a great spot. And the crowd's going to buy it. It's going to be a huge moment, whether Naito can survive that Cobra Clutch or not. And that's what they're building to here. But I guess my question is, now that we know it's Okada Evil, and Evil Sonata, by the way, to me it was a nothing match. I went 3 1/4. I mean, I shouldn't call it a nothing match. It was a decent little... It was Sasha Banks, Io Shirai. That's what it was. A good match that should have been better. But so we've got Evil and Okada. Surely, Rich, this is the conference. Like, people get mad at us sometimes because and especially me, but we tend to approach wrestling from the business perspective first, right? And some people don't like that. But to me, there's no fucking way they do Okada Naito in front of 3,000 fans instead of
God, I would hope not.
Now, the best... Now, if you don't care about business, the best story is Okada winning the tournament and going for his title again, right? Like, that's clearly the best story. But they can't do that, right? They're not going to burn that match on a 1/3 filled building, right? Please tell me they're not going to do that.
I mean, the only thing I would say is that maybe you want to put your best foot forward and say, we're back, here it is, pay attention to us again, that sort of stuff. But that's never really how they've booked. They haven't booked like that. They've always saved matches, when they can, except for, I mean, again, we talked about it for the Wrestle Kingdom this year. They just fucking went with it. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't need to go with it. Business sense said you could maybe hold it off, but they just went for it. But this one would be even more wild. This one would be even more crazy, I think, if you go Naito and Okada in the main event of a third filled Osaka-jo Hall with 3,000 people. I mean, it other than the optics and the PR, business wise, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. You don't need to do it. You've already sold the building out. You've already sold it out. But if they want to put their best foot forward and prove, hey, we're back, here's our top match, whatever. But I think there's a lot more money to be made in holding off Okada and Naito for another opportunity and hoping and praying that it's in front of a giant 50,000 seat to fill Tokyo Dome as opposed to a 3,000 Osaka-jo Hall. I don't know. It'd definitely be different. This is not how they typically book, so that it would be surprising for sure.
It would just be fucking stupid.
Yeah, I mean it'd be dumb too because you've already sold the tickets and.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an instant sellout because people are going to be excited, number one, and it's only 3,000 fans. Why would you do that match in front of 3,000? You shouldn't do that match unless it's in Tokyo Dome again. I mean, let's be honest here. So it's going to be Evil. Are you surprised it's Evil and not Sonata?
I am.
Sonata was the favorite pre-COVID, and he was also the betting line favorite, by the way, in the new post-COVID tournament, too. So does that surprise you that it's Evil and not Sonata?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I would bet the house on Sonata doing it, and I think he was even I think he was legit even odds like yesterday as
heavy favorite.
Yeah, I saw. So yeah, kind of crazy that I guess if you're a betting man and you put money on Evil at the beginning of the tournament, you're going to do well. Because I mean, I would have never. Yeah, I definitely caught me by surprise because I don't think Evil has been really built for this at any point, and I'm not a big Evil fan to be honest. So. I'm not really looking forward to it.
I have not liked his tournament. He's left a lot to be desired, and he's kind of doing this gimmick where he's embracing the evil. He's cheating heavily. Lots of ref bump. Not just the gimmick with the head in the chair, the arm in the chair. He does that every match where he puts a body part in the chair and throws you into the railing or hits it with the other chair. That's part of his shtick. And I get that his name is Evil, right? But it's been very heavy-handed. Like, the story is he's doing whatever it takes to win. I get that from a storytelling aspect, but it takes me out of the matches, especially when there's usually another ref bump heavy or shenanigans heavy match on the show because it's New Japan. And the problem with New Japan now is they have two heel factions that do a lot of cheating, and LIJ, which are heel-leaning tweeners. Is that fair to say?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Who also lean in that direction and do a lot. So now you have three units in the company that are doing shenanigans-heavy shit between Suzuki-gun and Bullet Club, of course, and LI. It's too much. It's too much because a lot of these New Japan Cup shows had 4 tournament matches, and 2 of them were loaded with shenanigans. And I could deal with it, once a show. And some matches it makes sense. But then it's like a lot of cases on this shows, it was the semi-main and the main were loaded with this crap. And that has become Evil's story on top of it. So, you think Evil and Naito will have a big-time match in Osaka-jo Hall for that. First we're going to get Evil Okada. First, we're getting 2 big-time Evil main events. What are the odds that both of them deliver big?
Yeah, not good. In my opinion, not good. But, I mean, I guess he's a guy who is capable of having a pretty good main event level match, and those are 2 great opponents to have great main event level matches with. It's for me right now, seeing his output so far this tournament, and really to an extent seeing, Okada's output in this tournament so far, which has been, I think people are being a little hard on Okada. But
I liked the Nagata match.
Yeah, I liked the Nagata match too. So I maybe if you didn't love that one, I could see it. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, the Nagata match was really good. The Gato match was just a bunch of shenanigans.
Yeah.
And the Hiromu match was a good match, but not to the look. You gotta look. You cannot look. It was Hiromu Okada. I can't cut them any slack.
No, for sure. No, I haven't seen it yet, but yeah, of what I've heard, you're not alone in that. You're not on an island with that take. Like, a lot of people are just kind of like, all right, well, that was that. So
yeah.
Yeah, I guess Evil could, but I'm just not too excited. But I guess, from a business standpoint, again, he's a good throwaway guy to win, because you look at the contenders that were in place. Ishii, I would have had no issue. I think Ishii's a decent one to do because you're not really throwing anything away, but that's obviously done, because Hiromu beat him, which I think I'm not super against that. You don't want to do Hiromu versus Naito, obviously, in Osaka-jo Hall. You have that plan, and you can make some pretty big money off that, so I get that. Okada Naito, we said that again. Like, I don't think that's the right idea. They might do it. We'll see. In a week's time, we might be completely wrong, and they do that. I wouldn't. Sonata, I think he would have been a decent one too, because I don't know, you can throw away anything of him, and then I don't know. I guess you could say Taichi would be the other one, but I don't know. If, like, I don't know if Taichi or Evil, who I'd at least rather have winning the tournament, but. I guess Evil's not the worst. I'm just not super excited about it. So,
from a business perspective, you're not burning off a huge match.
Right.
In a building that you can't fill, so I kind of get it. I'm wondering if he was the original plan now, or if it was Sonata originally, but because it's only a 3,000 seat building, they're like, let's save Sonata and Naito. Do you think Sonata Naito is a bigger match than Evil Naito?
I do. Yeah, I do.
I do too.
Because I think you could really, with build, that can be a very important match in the career of Sonata. Like, that can launch him into whatever stratosphere you want to launch him into, and because I think over the course of the next year, and I thought this year was going to be one of those years as well, I thought he was going to jockey for position, move up the ladder, LIJ, and possibly even leave LIJ or whatever. This year seems like the right time for him to do that. Maybe it's going to be next year now because of all this sort of stuff. But Evil's a guy who, like, the ceiling for Evil is not he's going to break away from Naito and be one of the company's biggest stars. You know what I mean? Like, that's not going to happen. But that could happen with Sonata, and that's why I would keep that and save that for a moment when you're ready to maybe tell that story with him.
Sonata just came off, a year-long feud with Okada. I mean, where the idea was to get Sonata over. And Evil really hasn't had that graduation, so to speak, yet. So I do think there's a chance that maybe Sonata was the planned winner pre-COVID, and they've kind of pivoted away because they think Sonata Evil can be a bigger match. Sonata Naito. And maybe Sonata Naito would have contained some kind of angle that they're not comfortable doing, again, in a smaller, 1/3 filled building environment. So I'm not going to try to get carried away with fantasy booking, but all of those things have crossed my mind, where maybe this is a pivot to Evil as opposed to Evil being the plan all along. But who knows? So we've got Evil, Okada. I think we both agree that it'd be very silly for Okada to win that match. It's also kind of weird for Okada to lose to Evil, but the thing that they can do to get around that is, again, Evil has been cheating very liberally in these matches, so Okada kind of has an out. If Evil, if they do a ref bump and some bullshit with a weapon or something, you're kind of protecting Okada with the loss. So that kind of makes sense. But,
and they've also established over the years that Okada does lose to big guys sometimes. He's lost to Evil before. He's lost to Bad Luck Fale before. A lot of those were in the past, and they've kind of gotten away from those. That's more of a kind of a, for Fale, it was like a 2014, 2015 thing, and I think he's beaten Evil the last 3 times that they faced each other. But no, the cheating plus the fact that Evil's like, there's ways that they can get around that if they are going to do that. But yeah, I tend to think that they're going Evil. It just doesn't. It would be wild. It'd just be fucking wild to do Okada Naito with no build in a quarter or a third capacity building. But I don't know. But I wouldn't bet on that. That's all I'll say. So,
did you see the debut of Master Wato?
I've seen videos of it. I've seen GIFs. I don't know about that one.
People are going crazy about the Master Wato.
Master Wato. Looks like I just wanted to have a popsicle after I saw it. I was like, you know what? I haven't had a rocket pop in a long time. So.
Oh, because he's blue.
He's very blue. He's very blue. If he doesn't come out to Eiffel 65, they've really missed the boat here. But
so this is the way to the Grand Master, as many have predicted. What
was his poorly translated New Japan world name? Wasn't it River something? River People? Wasn't it River People Kawato?
River People. Kawato. Yeah. River People. Yeah.
People Kawato.
So yeah, Hirai Kawato.
We'll see. I mean, hey, look, a lot of guys have debuted with really shitty looks and have improved them over the time.
Look, here's the thing. Just because a guy comes back with some vignettes doesn't mean that he has to be a star. I never thought Kawato was going to be a star.
Right. I don't think that, I don't think you need to pencil in Kawato as your fucking King of Pro Wrestling main event. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, he was just, look, he's got weird underdog charisma, which we have always talked about with him. He's a weird looking dude. He's got like an underdog charisma to him where fans would get behind him as a young lion because Some guys just have underdog charisma.
Yeah.
And he's one of them. I never pegged him as like some kind of future player. I always thought he'd be a guy on the roster, right? And there's a role for a guy with, very strong underdog charisma. That's a very valuable role. Tomoaki Hanma remade the second half of his career having strong underdog charisma, and main evented shows despite the fact he never won singles matches, which is crazy, So it's like, but I never thought this guy had a big future.
No, and I think
about it a million times.
I think you can look at the way he and this is I'm not putting him down or anything, but like you can see the way he looks, and we've talked about it before. The way that New Japan likes their main eventers to look. Sonata, we've said from day one, that's a dude. Look at his body, look at like the whole presentation of Sonata. That's a guy that they were going to peg as a future star. Even to a lesser extent, Jay White.
Yeah.
When he came back, he was built. He had, good looking hair. He had good looking gear. He had, that was clear that was a guy that they had pegged for a future star, and he was, and he is, and he's there already. I don't, look at Kawato. I had nothing against the guy, but it doesn't strike me that they're like, oh, here we go, we got another one. He's kind of pudgy. He's kind of ugly. He's got blue hair. It's fine. He's. But again, it's not that hard to see who they want as their top guys, and where Kawato probably ends up. So yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, people are freaking out like he's on board. He's on on his way to becoming a king of pro wrestling main eventer, or he's going to win the G1 or whatever. No, it's he's back. Here he is, because they had to pull him back from Mexico at some point, and especially now during COVID, not the best time in the world. But he's that, and that's fine. But Karl Frederick, who we're going to talk about too. That's a dude that it's very clear that they understand. Oh, wait a minute. Here's what we got here. It's just the way they've booked. It's the way they've presented their stars.
Well, I see people talking about it. You're seeing people talk about it like they're afraid they're going to push this geek. I'm seeing people talk about it like, oh, what are they doing to him?
Oh, right. Yeah, it's like, oh, right. Because he was going to be a main eventer, until they made his hair blue. Yeah, right.
My whole thing is he was never going to be a player anyway. What's the difference?
I agree.
And it's like I see people saying, oh, he got attacked by Doki, and Doki is a bottom guy. But it's like, I think Kawato is going to be a bottom guy. And I think that he's going to beat Doki in whatever match they have, and he's going to win that feud to establish himself. So I don't think it's like this egregious thing that he debuted and got attacked by Doki. Because I think that's his slot, number one. And number two, Doki's a guy he's clearly going to beat. Doki's a great guy for him to debut against and beat. And it also tells you that he's a junior. I mean, we all kind of figured that. But he's going to be a junior. And so that was a clue there to what his future is going to be. But it's like, I don't know. I thought it's interesting. You know me, Rich. I love deep undercard feuds.
Oh, I'm ready for it. Yeah, dude. I hope he comes, because I think he's good in that role. I don't want him anywhere near the main event. I love the idea of Master Wato, coming up in a 6-man tag with Taguchi and getting the hot tag and coming out like a ball of fire. I'm down. Those old, they've been propped up by a lot of old guys in their undercards. So I think it's time for those next generation of young lions that are not going to be the stars to kind of fill that undercard or whatever. And I think Oka, whenever he comes back, is probably going to be in that same level as well. I don't see him as a future star, and that's fine. Not every young lion is going to be a future star. We've gotten lucky with a few guys that have been that way, but it wasn't that much different than David Finlay. He was never going to be a David Finlay. If and when it comes back and whatever is going to fill a good undercard role, but he's not Jay White. It was clear even in the young lion days. Jay White's the superstar. Jay White is the guy who's going to be main eventing Wrestle Kingdoms in the future. And David Finlay will be a good roster member. And that's fine. People have to understand that is going to happen with some of these young lions, too. They've hit, their percentages have been so good lately with their, getting stars out of the young lion ranks or whatever. But that's not what it's really meant. It's meant to just fill the roster all across the board. And that's probably what, to an extent, Wato, Oka, some of these guys, that's where they're going to be. And that's fine. That's okay. You need to be okay with that.
I just like when they give storylines to the, because New Japan is not great at that.
No,
it's usually on their big shows, 3 or 4 title matches, maybe if you're lucky a singles match that isn't a title match but means something, and then a bunch of tags, 6 and 8 man tags. So I like when there's something deep on the undercard where there's a story. I like that Doki has a storyline. I like that he has something to do other than eat a fall in a 6-man tag. And that's why I was like, I was into the Yoshitatsu versus Bone Soldier thing. Not because it was obviously horrible wrestling, but it was a prelim level program in New Japan, which we never get. And I thought it was fun that those guys had a little program going in the opening match of the shows. We talk about it all the time with WWE. It's like we like when there's down card women's feuds because they're so rare sometimes. Like something other than the title program in the women's division is always welcomed because for years it was just never the case. And I think NXT is one thing they do well is they give the entire women's roster something to do that's meaningful. Aside from, okay, it's your turn this month to be in the title program. And I think New Japan doesn't always do a great job with having everyone paired off in some kind of program or feud. So I like that there's this little prelim feud to get Master Wato going to whatever they have planned. Maybe he'll just stay a prelim guy or a mid-card guy.
that name is going to be very hard to get used to. It's like I can't say it without giggling.
Silly.
I can't say it without giggling.
It's inherently silly. The whole
because then you see his face too, and he's just like such a.
He's a geek.
I love the kid. I love him, but he's such a dweeb. It's perfect. Master Wato, and then you just see his face, Or there was that like pan they did on the video where it's like his face, and it's just panning past him, and you're just like, good lord.
Yeah.
Oh god, I love it though. But hey, you know what? I'm down. I'm down for an undercard geek. We need some more of those. So.
And maybe it won't work, and they'll go back to the drawing board. I mean, that's possible too. But I just think with these vignettes, we've been so used to the people being a big deal. It's Moxley. It's Hiromu coming back. It's Hiromu the first time had vignette. It's who else had big vignette? I know there's a million others.
Yeah, Jay White, of course, had real famous ones.
But it's not always going to be where the guy. I think people get a little wrapped up, or it doesn't mean they have to be a top line player just because they're getting reintroduced. That's that Gato and Jado thing. Those guys just love Western wrestling, and that's just a thing that we do in the West. We give guys vignettes when we debut them, and I'm involved.
Cutting up.
You get the idea. Yeah, it's not and it's like, and look at WWE's history. When they were vignette heavy, especially in the 90s, it wasn't always like a future. Like Skinner got vignettes for weeks and weeks, with him in the swamp. And
right. Who could forget Blood Runs Cold, the fucking 8 months of, vignettes for Glacier. And then he debuted as like a dude on the roster, and that's it.
Vade Hansen. Remember Vade Hansen?
Dude.
Did he even wrestle a match on TV? I
don't know if he actually ever did. Yeah, now that I think about it.
He was coming for The Undertaker, remember? Wasn't he coming for The Undertaker, Vade Hansen? Or am I thinking of someone else? Nathan Jones, maybe?
I think you're thinking of Nathan Jones. He did wrestle, and they had a bunch of... they gave Nathan Jones, 1,000 fucking videos and vignettes where he broke out of prison and did all this sort of stuff, and then, he wrestled, he was going to face Undertaker at Mania, and Undertaker was like, no, I'm not facing that kind of one-on-one, and then it was, Nathan Jones and fucking A-Train versus Undertaker. Remember that? They had to change it to something or whatever. And then that dude just straight up left. I love the story of him leaving. They went on an Australian tour and he just didn't get back on the plane. He was just done.
Right.
I love it. It's great. I'm good.
He had other shit going on, like movie roles.
Yeah.
He was always like a henchman in action movies and shit like that. I'm trying to think of who the action stars were in those days. What action movie would he have been in? Jason.
I think he was in Troy, if I remember correctly. Was he the one that was in Troy? I don't know if that's
was he in
Troy?
True.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was in Troy. I do remember that now.
I feel like he's a random goon that Jason Statham would kill in the middle of one of his movies. He'd be confronted with Nathan Jones in a hallway, right? And be like, oh, how am I going to get by this guy? And Nathan Jones is snickering and cracking his knuckles, right?
Yeah, snorting. You got to snort a little, and then crack your neck, snort and crack your neck.
No shirt on, of course.
Oh, no, well, why would you?
And then that music would come out. It'd be like techno music. And then they'd have their fight scene while the techno music is going on. And Statham would break his neck and then make some kind of wisecrack while looking down at his carcass and then walk off and finish the movie. That Nathan Jones had a big future in being that guy, right? So fuck it. I wouldn't have got back on the plane either when he realized his career was going nowhere. But I think Vade Hansen, I think they just always made those guys gun for the Undertaker.
I think it was Hade Vanson. I think that's why I'm not recognizing. That's close enough. When I was looking it up, I should say, I couldn't find it. Yeah, I think his name was Hade Vanson. Was his name?
I mixed up the H and the V.
Yeah, I think so. But who cares? Yeah, he did like weird vignettes and then just went away immediately. He never wrestled again, so I don't know what the hell.
I don't think he ever wrestled. Period.
I don't think. I don't know what the hell happened with him. So
did Brackus ever get on TV?
A few times. I'm in the In Your Houses right now, doing the In Your House series at patreon.com/voiceswrestling, and like Brackus is in every single Wrestling Observer, every single one. He's in every dark match. They're trying like hell to get Brackus to work.
They
and
wanted that to happen.
They must have been floating it to Dave too, because every fucking week in the Observer, Dave's like, "Well, Brackus is learning very well, and he's starting to take bumps a lot better than he was last week." Like, I don't know who was feeding him the info, fucking Terry Taylor or somebody like that. But every single week was like, Brackus is progressing nicely, or whatever. Like, every week. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, Dave! Just like, you don't have to put every single Brackus update every single fucking week, and he did. Yeah, it's like. Brackus is now upgraded to doing moves off the top rope, so any moment now, Brackus should be ready to go. And it's like, okay. And then he wasn't. Yeah, and then they said, hey, Paul, here you go. What can you do with Brackus? And he said, I got some ideas. Wait, no, I don't. Here you go.
None.
Yeah, I have some ideas. Wait, I don't. Here you go. You can have him back now. And then he did Brawl for All, and then he was gone. So
I can't wait to get to the Brackus era of November to remember.
And Paul Heyman was licking his chops like, oh, yes, I got it. And like, imagine he couldn't figure out anything for that guy. This is the guy who made 911 like a commodity in wrestling.
Yeah.
And he couldn't do anything with Brackus.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, really, he got 911
He got 911 paid out of the ass from Eric Bischoff just by...
Tombstone. Yeah. He got 911 over like a motherfucker. 911 at one point in like 1995, I guess, in terms of in front of fans and buildings, was like one of the most over people in American wrestling when he would come out on those ECW arena shows to choke slam somebody. 911. And he couldn't figure out anything. What does that say about Brackus?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, he must have been that bad where Paul Heyman was just like, I don't know. Like, the man who can manipulate all the land of misfit toys and make almost every single one of them into something had fucking nothing for Brackus. Like,
at the peak of his prowess doing so, too.
Right.
And he was doing it with everybody on the roster. So that is incredible that he couldn't figure out something to do with that guy, with his look and everything. I don't know. But we done with New Japan here, I guess. Are we forgetting anything? Oh, Karl Frederick.
Yeah. You want to talk about Fredericks, who was officially, I guess, no longer a young lion. Is that correct?
Yeah, he did an interview with Kevin Kelly. He debuts tonight. We could say that because this show is live now, Rich.
Yeah.
He debuts tonight on a 2-match. What are they calling these?
Lions Break Collision. Yeah, we have a preview up at voiceswrestling.com as well if you want to check that out.
Yes, they taped a bunch of these things, presumably in LA. So at least like the West Coast-based American New Japan contingent are getting work on our shores, because you look at that show, it's all the West Coast guys. TJ Perkins, Jeff Cobb, Karl Fredericks, Rocky Romero. Who else is on the show? There's a tag in a single.
So you got Cobb, you got Romero, TJP, Karl Fredericks, Mysterioso coming up, Clark Connors, Alex Coughlin, Tom Lawler. I forgot Filthy Tom Lawler. That's going to be awesome.
Oh, yeah. But because they taped a bunch. But tonight's is...
tonight, let me get the card for tonight. Clark Connors, Alex Coughlin, then Jeff Cobb and Rocky Romero versus TJP and Karl Fredericks.
So there's a Young Lions singles match, Connors versus Coughlin, right?
Yes.
And then the tag match is TJP.
Cobb and Romero versus TJP and Fredericks, yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. So Fredericks, we know, is no longer a young lion. He's going to be debuting, his new gear and whatever his look is going to be. What do they do in terms of a finish in that match?
I think he pins Rocky, right?
I mean, it's interesting because...
Or does Cobb pin TJP? I mean, I'd establish it right off the bat. Fredericks pins Romero, but I guess you could do Cobb over TJP if you really want to.
Or does TJP pin... Well, Could TJP pin Rocky? Would they do that?
He could, I guess. Yeah, Rocky's definitely taking the fall on that end.
I don't think Rocky cares about
no.
protecting his...
God, no.
And I don't think they're going to beat Cobb. I don't know. I think Fredericks might still lose the fall despite shaking off the young lion rust, because it's a weird match in terms of just the way they book and things. So I don't know. But the point here is, no matter what happens tonight, off we go with Karl Frederick. No excursion. He's like, what, 30 or 31? So the time is now.
Yeah, his exact age, let me see, 29. He's 29 right now. But
well, still, point stands.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
It's not like he's 22. So, you know, because it's you know them. It's going to take 2 years to warm them up and then another year to – so you're talking like 34, 35 by the time, you know, he's ready to main event or whatever. Or they're ready to main event him because it takes them – I mean, I don't know. Jay White, they kind of – but Jay White, again, he's not exactly 22 years old either. I mean, he's probably about the same age. But yeah, so we'll see. I'm real excited about that. I can't wait to watch that. And like you mentioned, the ones coming up, you know, Mysterioso. I just watched all of the Anaheim ones they did in December with Barrett Brown and Mysterioso and the Regal twins and all those guys. And those were much better matches than I thought they were going to be. Mysterioso looks good. I could see them using Mysterioso in Japan based on what I saw.
Oh, for
those
sure.
Anaheim
Yeah,
matches.
best of the Super Juniors type stuff, Super Junior Tag League. Yeah, absolutely.
He looked pretty good, and Barrett Brown looked good. I hope he gets an opportunity at some point. Aaron Solo was on those shows, and he was wearing the Fale Dojo T-shirt.
Uh-oh.
So, well, we knew he was down there because he worked the Australian tour last year or whatever, or maybe the year before, whatever, because he was down there. He's working with the Wheelman and down there at Fale's school. So the point I'm making here is you're starting to see some fruits of the Fale dojo start to trickle into New Japan too. They've got 3 dojos adjacent to them on 3 different continents, funneling talent. It's not a bad setup, you know? So, you know, you got Shibata in LA and Fale in New Zealand and of course the dojo in Japan. So, and you mentioned Tom Lawler, which is interesting because they have like this tie-in with MLW and ROH is right there. And it's just flicking their fucking nose at ROH again. Like it's just the lack of respect they've been giving ROH since that MSG show just continues to show itself. We just kind of forgot because of COVID. But isn't that kind of a slap in the face that they're working with MLW with this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, for sure.
A Ring of Honor guy, you know, not that I particularly care. It's just notable. And I want to see how Tom Lawler fits in. Do we know what his matches were yet or no?
I don't. Yeah, as far as I know, just to be announced on those. And I haven't really searched around to see if there were spoilers or whatnot, but as far as officially announced, no. We the other 2 shows, we have TBA. We have a list of names, and that's it. We got Danny Limelight, Rust Taylor, the DKC, some of these guys.
Also new guys.
Yeah, there's
well, you know, they got a million guys in that LA dojo that haven't debuted yet that you see as young boys at ringside for a lot of the American shows. And a lot of them do a lot of duties. Like when I went to G1 in Dallas and I went to the media area to get my media pass, Barrett Brown was the guy they had behind the table handing out the media passes, like things like that. They put these guys to work, but they haven't debuted a lot of them yet. Like, you remember the hobo from CWF, from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think he drives the ring truck. If you watch, if you watch the Shibata documentary, he's like the guy who drives the ring truck, and he's in all the training sessions, and you see him at ringside at all the American shows doing young boy duties. So all these names you're saying that don't sound familiar, these Danny Limelights of the world, that's all of these guys that have been in the dojo. It's just that Fredericks and Connors and Coughlin were the top of the class, and they got out first. But it seems like maybe some of these other guys are finally getting in the mix, which is good to see. So, yeah, it shows to be interesting, but I'm really looking forward to watching Fredericks tonight.
Yeah.
And really interested how they're going to book the match.
All right, so let's while we're talking about Japan wrestling, you want to let's move over to All Japan Pro Wrestling because they had a very
let's
interesting.
bury the shit.
Yeah, let's go. I've been ready for this one. I've been ready for this. I told you were about to start a rant on our staff Slack, and I said, Joe, save that energy because I'm with you and I want to talk about it. So this is a few days ago. So this happened on the 30th. It was Suwama defending the Triple Crown title against Hisaru Ashino. We had been talking about it for weeks and weeks and weeks. The Enfant Terribles invasion of All Japan Pro Wrestling with Ashino as the leader, just fucking wreaking havoc over the entire thing, beating everybody left and right until he finally got this shot at Suwama for the Triple Crown title. He gets it on this show. This was called the Triple Crown of Wilderness, again on the 30th, All Japan Pro Wrestling.tv or AJPW TV if you want to watch it there. And I will say at the top, I enjoyed the match. I thought it was excellent. The finish, not so much, because Ashino is there. He's there. It looks like he's got him finished off. Suwama kicks out, continues to kick out, survives, and then beats Satoru Ashino and retains the title. And then Booker Man comes down afterwards to get his title shot. We'll talk about that one afterwards.
Yeah.
But what do you think of Suwama defeating Ashino to retain the Triple Crown title? They didn't make the move. They didn't pull the trigger. They had him lose.
Okay, first of all, great match. And I thought Ashino was so awesome, I thought, in this match. Especially down the stretch. His selling and his bumping for Suwama was phenomenal. I thought the structure of the match and the story of the match was great, where Ashino was going after that Achilles.
Oh, the Achilles. Yeah, people kept calling it an ankle lock, and I'm like, no. It's an Achilles lock, because that's the Suwama Achilles. I love that aspect of it.
Yeah, because if people recall, Suwama blew out his Achilles a couple years ago, and at 40 years old or whatever it was, he could have been done.
I think on the show we said he's done. He's history. He's never coming back. I mean, that's a terrible injury to come back from. It's a miracle he has come back. I will say that, really.
That Achilles has ended the careers of like 23-year-old athletes. I mean, it's a terrible injury. And it really takes away a lot of your athleticism, too, if you're able to.
Ember Moon is one right now. I mean, I think she even this week said that, like, she needs a second surgery on it. I mean, like, she's been out for 8 months already, and it might be another eight months or whatever. Yeah, it's a nasty injury.
And she's much younger than Suwama.
She is much younger than Suwama, yes.
And it might be finishing her off for good. So that kind of speaks to my point. But we've seen pro athletes get finished off by that or come back and they're never the same. You know, that's a little easier with pro wrestling, especially since, Suwama's not exactly Ricochet. So
it's not really bouncing off the top too much, but still, yeah.
But yeah, it's still notable that he was able to come back from it. He gets a lot of credit for that. And he's arguably been very similar as a wrestler. I don't think it's really affected his ability. Yeah, Ashino went after the Achilles. I love that. And that was the story of the match. And then I thought Ashino, just from the limb work going after the Achilles and then his selling and bumping down the stretch, he's been one of the best wrestlers this year. I mean, people forget he had the match against Nakajima, and back in Wrestle 1 and now the great work he's done in All Japan. And he's been one of the most interesting and best wrestlers this year. So the match was great. I feel like if you do the match, though, I have so many problems with this. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, I don't know where to start either. I guess okay. So we know the result. Suwama defeated Ashino. Maybe let's target it with like the reasons why you should do this. Okay.
Here's my first problem with it. They did it in front of no fans. That's problem number one.
Because and that's what the rebuttal I've heard from a lot of people, because I complained a little bit on Twitter about it and saying I hated that decision. A lot of what people were telling me was, well, they don't want to switch the title with no fans. Well, then don't fucking book it. You don't have to. Like, you don't have to book it. Like, I hate never, ever, ever come at me with, well, they didn't want to do this. Well, they don't have to. It's fucking pro wrestling. It's not MMA. It's not fucking, oh my God, this guy's wins. We got to give him the title shot. Oh, there's no way we can not. No, you could just say, hey, you got to go another month. Fight through more guys until you get there. So you don't have to fucking book it if you don't want to do it.
Like, it's not the Minnesota Timberwolves upsetting the Lakers and going to the NBA Finals.
Yeah, and them going out.
Fuck.
Well, that's what it is. So.
The ratings are going to tank, but they can't control that. You can control this environment. So it's like my first problem is they burned off what felt like a super hot match and didn't make any money off of it.
Correct.
That's my first problem. My second problem is then if you do the match, I don't think he can't beat Ashino. Like he had all the momentum in the world, and it's like I feel like it would have been a better decision if you're going to do the match that he just needs to win it at that point.
Right.
Or
for people that haven't followed, he has not lost, and he hasn't even particularly even I mean, he's fucking wrecking dudes along the way. Yeah,
and he's burned through every faction on the roster. And tag matches, to be fair, but he went through Jake Lee, he went through Zeus and Purple Haze, he went through he worked his way right up the roster, winning tags. My third problem with it is the entire faction lost. Kodama lost the junior title challenge against Iwamoto. Kumura Arashi lost to Jake Lee in the semifinal. And then Ashino loses to Suwama. They beat all 3 guys in one night after all of this build. And it's like, what the fuck, man? This all felt so hot, and you stopped all of these guys in their tracks. And I'd almost be okay with it if this was it. Okay. Enfants Terribles came in to do a little run, and we built them up, and our guys beat them all and sent them packing, and now they're off to whatever it is they're going to do. But Rich, that's not the case. They're coming back.
Right, and that's when the match finished, the initial thought I had without looking at the cards, without looking at everything else, I went, okay, well then I guess I got worked into thinking that they were going to move the title to him, but this might have just been, hey, let's get us through the empty arenas. Thank you guys for your time. Maybe we'll call you back. Go do whatever you're going to do. Go freelance. Go move to another company. That's my thought. It was like, okay, this was the blow-off then. This is it. He got to the peak. He got to the mountain. He couldn't do it. Okay, they're done. Then I go and see that they're just right back in there, and I'm like, well, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, and to compound all of it, I mean, at least his boys could have won to, keep the unit hot, right? Put the junior title on Kodama or give Arashi a huge win over Jake Lee. That's more ballsy. I don't know if I would have done that. But it's like, but I like the build to Arashi Jake Lee, where he was holding up Jake Lee's picture in the magazines and talking shit about him. And, but it's like, you beat all 3 of them. You wipe these guys off the face of the earth. And I think they sucked a lot of the juice out of that. So I don't know. I had a ton of problems with the booking here and just doing the match in the first place in front of no fans. I'd even give him a pass if they held off and did the match in front of fans and drew some money off of it and beat him. But you beat this guy and you haven't drawn a dime with him yet. That rubs me the wrong way, because I really feel like they could have drawn money with this guy in a title challenge, and they pissed that away because they already did the match and he lost. At least if he wins, you can make money with someone chasing him. My idea was he beats Suwama and then Miyahara chases him. Because I think Miyahara Ashino, with the way they've built Ashino, could have been a big money match, especially if Ashino didn't have any losses yet.
All right.
And then you have the company ace save the company from these invaders.
Well, and that's, not to get into fantasy booking or whatever, but my first, thought, and I think we maybe even talked about this as well. The thing that I love is that, Ashino beats Suwama. And then when they do bring fans back, that's kind of the heat is that, like, hey, while you guys were all away, these assholes came in, invaded our company. Well, now you guys are back, and I need you to help me, rally to beat these guys and take our title back or whatever. I mean, that just seems like Invasion 101, right? That Miyahara says, all right, we're back here in front of fans, our fans, All Japan Pro Wrestling, like, let's beat these invaders. Let's show them that they don't belong here. Like, that seems like the fucking 101. And they just threw that all away. They just pissed it all away. And I don't know why. I just can't understand it.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't like any of this aside from the match itself, which was great. So, and then like you said, then the Booker man comes out and he's the next challenger. So
Pencil man comes out.
Yeah, we're doing Tsuji Ishikawa versus Suwama, which, all right, but I mean, I think Tsuji Ishikawa has clearly lost a step. I think most people would agree with that. The last 18 months or so have not been vintage Ishikawa, and I'm not saying can he go in there with Suwama. Would it be outlandish that they have a great match? Of course not. Both of those guys can rise up and have a great match. But they're also 2 guys who, Suwama is never a lock to have a great match. And Ishikawa is a guy who just, his fucking age and history is starting to catch up to him a little. So, and from a story perspective, I don't know where we're going. I mean, I would think Suwama retains, but who knows? And a lot of people think they're still going with Jake Lee, especially with Nomura out. And Jake Lee did win the semi here. But I'm sorry, Jake Lee's never going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And I'm tired of rehashing it. I'm done with Jake Lee as a potential breakout guy. I just don't think he's going to happen. So I think what I saw from Ashino, and look, we didn't see him in front of crowds, to be fair. Who knows if crowds would have taken to him? I think they would have, though.
Yeah, I can't imagine they wouldn't have. I mean, I don't know if we're working ourselves into a shoot here, but Jesus, I can't imagine they wouldn't have.
The only thing is sometimes in Japan it gets a little weird where companies do not accept guys from other companies sometimes. You do see that sometimes where it's just like maybe the All Japan fans would be like, Wrestle One guys,
yeah, I don't know, yeah, but to me that's the heat. That's the part that's awesome. Like, is that you say, fuck these guys, get them out of here. Like, they're the invaders.
No,
but I see what you mean. I know absolutely what you mean. They may have seen him as a lower class guy, but dude, right. I think he's got so much charisma and he's so off the charts that, like, I don't know. I don't buy that would have been the case, but who knows? You're right.
I don't either. Because I thought it was all so well done and they performed so well.
That's the part. That's the thing that I don't get is like I have literally zero complaints about how they did it the last month and a half, 2 months or whatever. They built everything for June 30th. Oshino to go in there, beat Suwama, win like they did it all for that, and then they just didn't do the last part. And now I just don't know what the hell it seems all for naught. It seems like why did I invest in the last 2 months of this? And you can come back and run it back, but it's not the same.
You lost it. You lost the first time. You lost that. And I really think this card would have filled Korakuen based on the build. And it wasn't just Ashino, it was his boys, too.
Yeah.
His boys have done very well. I mean, Kodama has been a revelation. And Arashi, like I said, the build to the Jake Lee match was awesome. I
didn't realize they all three lost, man. Oh, Jesus. I didn't even, until you mentioned it here. Boom, boom, boom. 3-3. Yeah, fucking the last three matches they all lose. Jesus.
They beat them all. And just, I'm looking at the card now because I've been so into the All Japan. I watch all of it, top to bottom, during the COVID. They've done such a good job with like serialized shows. One show leads to the next, and they've done more backstage interviewee type of stuff to kind of supplement. They've done a great job. Listen to these match times, and this is why All Japan has done a nice job. 8:21, 8:29, 6:31, 5:56, 10:56, 12:53, 8:24 for the semi-main event. You're in, you're out. You tell your story, you get the fuck out. You don't give a chance to be bored with the no fans. And the main event went 27, and I saw people complain that the main event was too long. So that goes to show you.
Yeah.
It's like the one match that now I didn't feel like it was too long.
No, hell no. I thought it needed that moment because it was the coronation and the crowning of a new champion, but well,
I was invested start to finish, but it may be because we were more invested in the match than a lot of people who just parachuted in.
Yeah, if you parachuted into this, I could absolutely see you getting bored and not thinking it's very good without seeing, what that build has been. Yeah, no, I get that for sure.
Yeah, so I get why people thought that. But, just to show, like, All Japan gets it with the match times, and they've been so good about that, keeping the match at good length and not overstaying their welcome. And also they've just changed the way that they've booked, in terms of telling their stories. But I'm just disappointed in the outcomes, and we'll see where it goes. I just feel like now they're going to do a champion carnival or something, and Ashino will go like 7-3. You know what I mean? And like the specialness is gone. Like they blew their load here. It's like he'll go into a carnival and do okay, but he'll lose to two of the stars and he'll get upset in another match against like a mid-card guy. He'll lose to fucking, I don't know, name an All Japan mid-carder. He'll lose to fucking Ryuji Sai or something. and an upset because it's the carnival, so guys are going to lose. And he'll lose, and it's like all the juice will be gone. This was the juice, and I really think they should have. Now, maybe this was obviously the plan all along, but sometimes you got to call an audible, man. And you got to be like, let's save this fucking thing, because the light was at the end of the tunnel for fans. It wasn't even like they're doing a show with fans, like their next show. Like it was coming. It's not like it's gonna be 2 more months. Fuck it, no. You could have fucking drew some fans with this. I don't know. It's just a little disappointing. But the follow up will be interesting. And I would have been okay with it if it was a write-off. That's a whole nother scenario.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I could swallow that a lot easier. Okay, that's it for these guys. Now they're going to go to their next stop or whatever, or, they're going to freelance or they're going to whatever. But yeah, the idea that's like, all right, bring them back. It's like, oh, well, all right. Like,
this is how you write people off. You have all your stars beat them.
Yeah, well, especially like now that I know, I knew that Arashi lost, but I forgot that Kodama lost too. So it's like, shit. Like, yeah, all three of them, it's just like, all right, well, they're geeks. You know what I mean? They all lost in a row, so... and people are saying, oh, well, you can run it back, or he's got to go through more people. He doesn't have to go through more people. If he had to go through more people, then have him go through the more people before he gets to Suwama. Like, I don't like the idea you climb to the mountaintop and you fall down. Like, I'm not interested in the climb again. I don't really give a shit anymore.
Yeah, completely.
There's a way to do it. It might work. Like, there's a way where it could work, but like, man, it worked perfectly here. Like, and they just didn't. I don't know.
I'm not saying he's dead. There's just the juice is gone.
Yeah,
the juice is gone. I guess this is a good transition to Jun Akiyama. Who I don't know if you caught this while you were away, but he appears to be done with All Japan. Now he's still under contract, but they're doing like a European soccer style contract transfer to DDT. And he's going to quote unquote play out his deal while working for DDT. And then all of the writing is on the wall. At that point, he's probably just going to become a contracted DDT wrestler. So it appears as though Jun Akiyama is finished with All Japan. He had his last match a couple weeks ago, I think, don't quote me, against Dan Tamura. I think that was his last match. And he slapped around the young boy. It was a cool match because he beat the living shit out of him. But that's it. He appears to be done. He appears to be on his way to DDT. That's some jump. What's your initial take on this? Because I have a lot of thoughts.
Yeah, it's to me it hurts because I'm just not as into DDT as I am in All Japan right now. So
I will never watch him wrestle again.
Yeah, that's the only problem is that I do, and I have to wonder, if it. Obviously, it's probably his decision in some way, shape, or form, which is fine. Maybe he's looking at his body and going, you know what, I'd rather, have half, matches where I got to go in there and work hard, and then maybe half matches where I can kind of dick around a little bit and save my body and still kind of stay around. Maybe he's unhappy with. I don't know. I don't know the history behind it or the background behind it, but yeah, it is a little disappointing because I do think he has a lot to offer to the All Japan roster, and as somebody who's just not a regular DDT watcher, it's just. Now I'm really just not going to see Jun Akiyama as much as I was, and that kind of stinks. And I liked a lot of what he did in All Japan, and I know he hadn't been booking or really in Power for a while there, but it can't be understated how important he was to the company, getting back on its feet and literally being reborn as All Japan, the same name, different company basically. But yeah, I know he had great contributions, and it kind of just stinks because I'm probably just not going to see him very often. So.
I think that last year when he was stripped of power, remember, it was very fishy. He was stripped of the presidency or whatever his title was. And he had already he's been trying to reel himself back in the ring for years. I mean, that's been a running joke.
Yeah, it's the only way for him to get out of the Champions Carnival is to leave the company, I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, so he didn't have any more front office power. He clearly is not a guy who wants to bump anymore. And he has earned the right to stop bumping. I have no problem with that. And you could see that he's been trying to formulate an exit plan for the next stage of his life when he was dabbling with WWE before the COVID, And I know a lot of people got on his case about that. What's he's going to get involved with the Fash promotion, blah, blah. But I mean, I never really blamed the guy for that because he's earned the right to cash in the chips, and if that means a cushy job. Right.
Dude's been working his ass off since 1992. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's okay if he decides that.
Yeah. If he wants a cushy, yeah. Absolutely. If he wants a cushy job with WWE Japan or move to Orlando, more power to him, man. I think he's earned that right. And, that fell apart, obviously, because they're having trouble making inroads in Japan, and COVID happened and everything. But it's clear to me that, no longer being president in All Japan and no longer, having anything to do with the booking. And let's not forget his buddy dying in a motorcycle crash.
Oh, right, yeah.
With Aoki dying in the motorcycle crash. And, he had a hand in a lot of the booking in All Japan as well. And those two were kind of running things for a while. He's been looking for an out and an exit strategy. And, maybe with the change in the front office and the booking change to Ishikawa, he just didn't feel, and his friend gone, and Aoki gone, he just didn't feel a place anymore, and I think DDT is a good move for him because he can go to DDT. It's a very stable company, owned by a very stable parent company, and he's a guy with front office experience. He's a guy that's respected in wrestling, and this might be him cashing in his chips, and he doesn't have to bump anymore. He could have comedy undercard matches with Antonio Honda and fucking Dino and whoever the fuck. And just, he's not going to DDT to mix it up with Takashita in the main events. Okay. If anyone thinks that's what this is, it's not. I mean, cause he didn't want that in All Japan. He's not going to get in there with Tetsuya Endo and work 35-minute match.
Right.
You're not getting that. Okay. This is a guy who's winding it down, and there's probably, he has his eye on some of that Abima, that's the name of the company, right? Abima, some of that Abima money front office. I mean, this is a guy setting up the next stage of his life, man. So that's kind of how I see this. And, from that perspective of, I don't watch much DDT, and I definitely don't watch DDT undercards. I'd rather fucking put needles in my eyeballs than watch DDT undercards. So I'm not going to watch him wrestle much anymore. I have no interest in watching him wrestle inflatable pandas or whatever the fuck. It's just garbage to me. But it's a good move for him because, I don't blame him for not wanting to bump, and I don't blame him for wanting, he's kind of a guy who got lost in the shuffle of history, and he didn't end up with New Japan, and then New Japan blew up, and it was with Noah when it all fell apart, and then he goes to All Japan and it falls apart, and he got them to a certain level, and you have to give him credit for the rise of Miyahara, but they were never able to establish a second star. And you give him credit for getting All Japan off of death's door, but they really, and still to this day, if we're being honest, they're just a big indie. They were never able to get over the hump because they were never able to make more stars other than Miyahara. And I think that's what sunk him, either in the eyes of the people who removed him, or he just lost his own motivation with losing his friend and not seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. And maybe he just removed himself and thought, I did what I could here, but I got to move into the next stage of my life. I can't be, I was going to say pulling my hair out, but he has no hair, over trying to get Jake Lee and Naoya Nomura over until the end of time, because it's not going to happen. I don't blame him if this was, his decision to do this, but definitely interesting and definitely something I didn't see coming.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of the story of his career in a lot of ways too, is that he's always, been very, very close to being, getting over the hump, but never quite. Noah tried like hell when they first started to make him the star, and it didn't work. All Japan, slowly moved up the ladder, and then when he was about ready to finally maybe become the star, then it all goes to shit. And yeah, that's kind of the story of his career. Is just
I think his Noah run is a little he was on top for a lot of big houses, and I think a lot of people don't give him the credit he deserves as a draw. He never got to the level of
it's the biggest shadow in the fucking universe that you had to follow or try to get out of was tough.
It's an impossible act to follow when you're trying to follow Misawa Kobashi and Kawato and all. But this is a guy who drew. You look at the houses he drew and put them in today's landscape, and it's like, but he always has felt like a guy that, to some extent, got lost in the shuffle a little, and then, like you're saying, he's about to get pushed in All Japan, and they have the Exodus, and then he gets pushed in Noah, and, he's got an impossible act to follow, and then Noah, Misawa dies, and Noah's going downhill, and then they jump back to All Japan, and it's a fucking on death's door, and it's just, I don't know, never really, sometimes it's where you are as much as who you are, and timing. It's like Go Shiozaki is another example of a guy who's just fucking snake bitten. I don't know if Go Shiozaki was ever going to have the necessary charisma to be a legitimate top drawing ace in Japan, but I also know that he got fucked many times along the way. And a lot of times your perception then ends up cast in stone, and then you really have no chance to get over the hump. But I don't want to drift too far because we don't have a lot of time left. And we have a few other things to get to, but that's Jun Akiyama headed to DDT, and I guess we should briefly talk about 0-1, right? Because
yeah. Any updates? So the latest that we heard, we had talked about it a few weeks ago. I know you did a news update where you talked about 0-1 looking like it's on the way out. Have we heard anything new since the last few weeks?
No. They're doing their junior tournament, so. Well, first of all, okay, so last week, and I talked about this on one of the news updates.
I think it was the Monday. I believe it was the Monday news update for people that do want to go back and listen.
So Kohei Sato is gone, and that kind of makes sense because he kind of disappeared from the main event scene.
Right. Well, remember when we talked about the match, and we're like, man, he just got kind of punked there in that main event. He just took the fall, and it was kind of like, oh, all right, that's the end of that. So it makes sense now. You got to wait. You got to wait to pass judgment sometimes. So.
Yeah, and Akuto Hidaka's gone, and Tatsuhito Takawa are gone. Now, look, those are all older guys, but they're also made up a major core of the company, and Sato was arguably the top guy in the company. Champion probably a half a dozen times. How many times? He had to be champion multiple times. But the point here is he was a top guy. The managing director, too, one of the front office guys, also left the company. And Hidaka had very ominous tweets saying, I'm leaving the company, but I'm not retiring, and I'm basically asking to get booked, and then wishing 0-1 well. So they're just having obvious money problems when these are probably very high-paid guys that are leaving because they're not getting paid anymore. That if you're going to try to piece it together. So they appear to be in big trouble. I mean, they did announce a field for their junior tournament and announce a bunch of dates for their junior tournament. So they're going to keep marching on, I guess, until what might be their inevitable death. But they might be one of these promotions that just, go down due to the COVID. So it's not looking good. I mean, I like I like 0-1. I watch all of their shows. I've always watched all of their shows because it's an easy promotion to follow because you get 8
like
to 10.
6 shows a year.
Yeah, and not a lot of it hits tape, But I got to be honest, and I'm not going to be all that upset if they fold because I think the good wrestlers will land on their feet and end up in other places. I'm not worried about that. But it's like, as we saw, we just talked about All Japan with Enfants invading All Japan and the little spark that gave them. I think it's good if some of these promotions go away that are barely hanging on anyway, and we get an injection of talent in some other places that are, more sustainable. What's your take on that? I mean, I don't think it's a horrible, I don't root for promotions to close, but if they do in Japan, I'm not all that upset about it because I do think it's kind of healthier for the scene to give some of these other struggling promotions stronger rosters is what I'm getting at.
No, for sure. And I think people are used to, people that have just jumped into Japanese wrestling or whatever. And I'm one of those as well. I've only kind of followed it, extensively for, 10 years or whatever, even a little bit less than 10 years.
That's
or whatever.
A long time, Rich.
It is. I guess it is. I guess I'm old as shit. But that is, we're used to there being 15, different companies out there, and your Wrestle Ones, your 0-1s, your All Japan, your Noah, your Hard Hits, your fucking Heat Up. I mean, we're used to that, just being a scene that's just filled with companies or whatever. And that hasn't always been the case. There was a time especially in the early 90s or whatever, when it was New Japan and All Japan were the powerhouses, and yeah, you had your breakoffs and your Gumis and your fucking UWFs and that sort of stuff, and UWFIs and all that sort of stuff. But for the most part, it was 2 powerhouses and then just not really much else. And we've little by little fractured to the extent where there's really New Japan and then a bunch of, like you said, ranks of different indies, where Noah, again, people are going to get upset about that, but they're technically, to a lesser extent, they're just like All Japan. They're kind of just a big indie. Dragon Gate, I think, has kind of fallen to that level as well. DDT, maybe because of the backing, you could put them up another level or whatever, but we've gotten kind of used to the fracturing and there being 7 different companies and 8 different companies or whatever, but, it doesn't have to be that way. When it's healthy again, it might come that way again, but, in the meantime, while it's not healthy, which it absolutely is not right now, and there's obviously dire situation in all the world of wrestling, but in this particular situation, it might be better for All Japan to be propped up a little bit more, Noah to be propped up a little bit more, and then you're going to have your 0-1s that are going to die. You're going to have your Wrestle Ones that are going to die, and there's going to be other ones that we'll talk about, over the course of the next coming weeks and months or whatever. With Big Japan being one that always seems like it's right on the cusp there, and it's going to suck because we're used to those companies and they have been around. But right now, I think the most important thing is to make the scene healthier is get those, top tier 4 or 5 companies or whatever, get them as much ammunition as they need to survive this. And then if things get healthy again, then they might break off and fracture and people will form new companies or whatnot. But now is not the time for there to be 17 different companies. It's not sustainable. The industry is not sustainable for that. So I'm with you. I'd rather All Japan be healthier, Noah be healthier, DDT be healthier, maybe Big Japan get some reinforcements and they're healthier or whatever. I'd rather that than a business like we have now, where it's New Japan is so far ahead of everybody else that it's not even close. I don't love that. I think that's kind of shitty, and that's kind of what it is right now. It's New Japan and 10 other people just kind of floating around in this pond. So I'm with it. It sucks that they're a company's going away, and but if it helps these other companies that are surviving and are going to make it through be a little bit stronger, I can't advocate against that.
I mean, we've been hearing about New Japan's growth trickling down and helping the other promotions for almost 10 years now. We've been hearing about, it's going to increase the popularity of wrestling and it's going to benefit everyone. I don't think that's happening.
No, they've cultivated New Japan fans, and that's it.
Yes. These New Japan fans that New Japan has created, they don't seem to be seeking out other wrestling. It doesn't seem like they are craving more wrestling and they're like, well, I see All Japan is coming to Korakuen next week. Maybe I'll check that. I don't feel like that has, and we're now almost 10 years into this thing of Bushiroad growing New Japan, so I don't see any evidence that has occurred. And I thought that was a valid theory too for a while, but I just don't see it occurring. You
can also see it too in the fact that New Japan doesn't do shit with any other company like that, and that's never been the case. Like All Japan, even in its peak, was helping out other guys and bringing in other companies and doing all together shows and that sort of stuff. New Japan, even in the '90s, is if I come on in, fucking Tenryu, come on, dude, let's do this. SWS, what I mean? Like they were always that. This New Japan, this Bushiroad New Japan. They're worried about themselves, growing themselves, and building their brand, not building the sport of pro wrestling in Japan.
Well, those promotions back then were incentivized to help each other out.
Exactly.
And New Japan doesn't have that incentive because they're growing on the. It's like they have the high ground, and there's just no incentive for them to. What's their incentive to like they've dabbled with it? I mean, they had the Noah thing, and they brought Marufuji and Nakajima into G1s, but that's because they wanted to poke their nose and get that ownership stake in Noah.
Yeah, and I think everybody, DDT found that out too. Hey, you're going to help us out or we're going to work together? Okay, cool. Oh, wait, no, hold on a minute. Like, that's not what you're here for. And that's kind of ended that, so.
Yeah, and it doesn't help when Tanahashi totally punks out Hiroshima. I mean, that was
that's
weird.
Still an all-time great moment, yeah. It's just like...
And that was weird, especially a guy like Tanahashi. It's like you think he'd be amenable to business, but he's a cutthroat dude. He understands wrestling and what, staying over and getting over, and that was a weird fucking match with no comeuppance. But 0-1, I mean, hanging on by a literal thread. And there's some talented wrestlers there. Masato Tanaka, Yuji Hino, Sugi, who we love probably more than anybody else does. Sato, who already left. And then the older guy. I mean, look, Shinjiro Otani. I mean, he's going to hold on. He will go down with the ship, as front office guy and being so tight with Hashimoto in his younger days. So there are guys that if it does fold, all the guys I just named are going to be fine. All of those people are going to get booked. You don't have to worry about them. You don't think someone's going to book Yuji Hino? I mean, give me a break. Maybe Sugi might have trouble. I don't think Sugi will be popping up in Noah anytime soon.
Yeah, well, man, I don't think so.
You can forget about Noah. But look, they've got this junior tournament scheduled, and it doesn't end until August 2nd. So they're just going to keep going until.
I love it.
So we'll see. I mean, it's really a pretty interesting tournament too. When I look at it, I mean, you got Hub, or I think you're supposed to pronounce it Hubu, right? I don't know why there wouldn't be another U in the end, but that's our boy Hub with the tail.
Yeah, maybe Ricky Starks can get him booked in AEW. So.
Yeah, alert Ricky Starks. It's like one of his favorite wrestlers.
That's the thing I'll always remember about Ricky Starks is fucking
loves Hubu.
Yeah, dude. Like, it would be like in the early days of Ricky Starks, and he'd I don't think they were ever DMs. They were like very out in the open or whatever. He's just like, hey, is there any new Hubu matches? Whatever. And we'd have to link him to some dirty ass link, and he's like, thank you. It's like, man.
Well, if you remember, I had him on the show, and you weren't on that one, but I had him on the show like in 2013. And I'm just interviewing him, and we're talking about I was like, oh, so what kind of stuff are you watching on? He mentioned watching YouTube, being a tape nerd, basically. And I'm like, well, what kind of stuff are you watching? And he goes, oh, I'm watching Hub.
Right.
First thing he mentioned.
What? Like most kids are watching, the fucking Iron Man match. They're watching Shawn Michaels main events, and this guy's watching the dirty ass fucking,
He's like, yeah, have you seen this guy? He's got a tail. And I'm like, yeah, I'm familiar. I'm like, I didn't think anyone else was, but all right. Yeah, so Hub is in the tournament. He's getting a bye, and Kuboto is getting the other bye. And then there's some interesting matchups in the middle. It's Kitamura versus Drew Parker. Sugi against Raicho. Those are our boys, Rich. They're going against each other.
Oh, no. No.
Yeah.
I hope there's a gentleman's handshake at the end of that match. I hope so. Hope and pray.
I hope so, too. Lindemann is in the tournament. Poor guy can't get booked.
Oh,
He's booked for
Jesus
0-1. He's facing.
The Shima coattails are not working this time for those guys.
Yeah, it's Lindemann
They're
versus
down to
Ken.
0-1 junior tournaments. That's
I know.
not
Well,
great.
I think the Shima thing's working against them. I think Shima has so much heat
Yeah.
that it's working against those guys. And T-Hawk's talking about retiring.
Yeah, there's like 15 years where riding Shima's coattails was the thing to do, and these guys picked the apparently the absolute worst time in history to ride the coattails of Shima, because that's it's not going well. Yeah, T-Hawk being like, yeah, you know what, I might get into the trades or something.
It's terrible. I mean, the China thing didn't work out, and
we got to save T-Hawk. We got to save T-Hawk. We cannot let that man retire just when he started getting good. We can't do this.
I mean, they can't get booked. I mean, if COVID clears up, I mean, Khan will take him. He loves him. But it's like, Lindemann's still like 24. He's going to be fine. And Lindemann's great. Lindemann is one real push in a high-profile promotion away from being considered one of the best juniors in the world. That's the only thing in the way of that, is staying in one place and getting a push. And that place isn't 0-1, but
No.
He's in the tournament and he's facing Ganseki Tanaka. And then the other first-round match is what was it? Oh, it's Otani, of course. Otani against Yomihito Imanari. That's the other first-round match. So it's a mix of 0-1 regulars, really good outsiders.
That's actually
really
not
good
bad.
outsiders like Lindemann, and then like grimy indie sleaze guys too. So it's really not that bad of a lineup.
That's a pretty good lineup, actually. Yeah, the outsiders have actually propped that up a little bit. Without those guys, I could say, but no, I don't mind that. I don't mind that lineup. It's pretty good.
I mean, you got some potential matches there. I mean, okay, so we can get Sugi versus if he win. Well, Lindemann would face the winner of Hub and Otani if Otani wins his first round match. So that'll be good no matter how it ends up. And the other side, a little weaker. I don't know. Who could predict 0-1 booking?
Yeah, I mean, why even bother?
It's
who knows?
I mean, I think a Sugi versus Hub final would be fun. I think they had a singles match earlier this year. Or Lindemann, but they're not going to send Lindemann to the final because he's an outsider, more than likely. But who knows? I don't know. Who knows if it'll even finish, though? That's the thing. And the other thing is, who knows how much of it will be on tape? You'd be lucky to see one match out of this thing, or the final, if you're lucky. So you can sit here and go, oh, who's going to face who? But you're not going to fucking see.
You might not see. Yeah, you're not going to see much. So don't. Yeah.
Anyway, that's 0-1.
There you go. A little 0-1. We are, they might be on death's door, but we are still a 0-1 podcast. So
yes,
get it here. Well, speaking of a promotion that we might never see or hear about again, we'll move over to America here for our last topic. We talked about this a few weeks ago. Kind of been rumored and bantied about, but it is official now. WWE has acquired ownership of Evolve. This is Mike Johnson, PW Insider, who was the first with it. He says WWE has officially acquired ownership of Evolve Wrestling. The deal was finalized after several months of negotiations between the two parties. WWE now has the rights to use the Evolve brand name and produce Evolve events. There will also be Evolve/WWN content added to the WWE network. So it's official now. So what do we think's next? What are those next steps? Do they ever run an Evolve show?
No.
I would say they're not doing that either, yeah.
The most exciting news there is that there's concrete plans to put that stuff on the network. I'm hyped about that.
Yeah, that's great. I'll watch it.
It specifically mentioned the GG USA and the Evolve libraries going to the network.
I don't think so. So it always said they were careful to say Evolve/WWN. So Evolve was always the first.
Well, WWN isn't going away. That's
right. That's that. Again, we talked about it a little bit, the few weeks ago, and we said that they got ready for this. They built different companies on top of each other to move things to different. Like the training school is its own thing. Evolve is its own thing. WWN Inc. is its own thing. So it's weird in that sense.
Sal Hamuai, or however you say his last name, he's staying in business under WWN. Shine is still moving.
FIP, baby.
There's conflicting reports on FIP. Some of the reports say there's part of the sale, but I read something else that said it's going to keep going. So I don't know what's up with that. Shine for sure is going to keep going. I think there's one more under their banner.
ACW I think is the other one.
Right, ACW. So Sal is keeping at least 2 of his promotions, maybe 3, depending which report of FIP you want to believe. So this is Evolve, and I would assume the Dragon Gate USA tape library too, because it's essentially the same. But I don't know that for a fact.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Yeah, I'm looking here at Johnson. He does not say it in his report. He just says that Evolve was created as a Dragon Gate USA offshoot, while DGUSA was a satellite promotion for Shima and other Japanese stars here in the States. Evolve was based on a different fighting side. Yeah, so that's all he says about DGUSA. He does not say Evolve and DGUSA will be on the network. It's Evolve / WWN content on the network. So I don't know if that just means like the WWN Super shows or the Evolve adjacent stuff. That's going to be the fascinating thing to see if that DGUSA stuff does pop up.
Hey, you know what we could do? We could just ask.
We could just ask.
Why don't we ever think of that? I mean, we could just ask. Now that it's all out in the open.
Yeah.
I mean,
Happy 4th of July. Oh, and like, you know.
Yeah.
You always got to screw with it. Hey, hope your family's doing well. Hey, by the way.
Hey, Gabe gave us a real quote the first time we asked about this. So he gave us information. But anyway, the exciting news is that there's plans to put that stuff on the network. And I know we've talked about it, but it's like, I know people are still worried about scrubbing the music. But again, I really feel like if you can do it for ECW, you can do it for anything. I really don't think it's a big deal.
I just always wonder if they really want to waste it. Like, I can't imagine like an intern getting like this, you know what I mean? Like, hey, here you go. Here's Evolve. Scrub all this shit. Like,
look, all you're really doing is chopping entrances and
that's what I would do. What I would do is just go in there, chop the entrances off, and just start within the ring. Do the PWG style where they just start in the ring. And
New Japan World. I mean, New Japan World. Nearly every match, there's no entrances.
Right.
For the older stuff. I mean, we live with it. I mean, it's not ideal. I would prefer the entrances with the music. Who wouldn't? But if it's that or not have it at all, just fucking chop them. And just put fucking random fucking Warner Chappelle fucking public domain music over the fucking outros. That's all. I mean, you don't like it, but you live with it. That's the first 20 Evolve shows, it was just a drum beat for every guy.
Right, yeah, those will be up in no time. You can put those up right now as long as you maybe listen to the commentary real quick and make sure there's nothing bad in there. But
the whole gimmick was that there was no music for like the first 20 shows. So that's exciting to me that stuff's going to be on the network. I will eat that for fucking breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'll watch those shows. There are periods of Evolve that are great. I mean, we've talked about it. And now that it's a dead promotion, it's like there's periods of Evolve that the whole thing is interesting. Like even the bad shows now. See, here's the thing about bad wrestling and bad periods of promotions. They're bad in real time because now that you know they're bad, there's value in the rewatch because you're not expecting it to be good. Does that make sense?
Right. There was the wait a minute. I just paid $20 for a fucking terrible stream of this fucking horrendous show. Like I'm pissed off. This sucked. Whereas now it's like whatever. You just pop it on the network. You watch Evolve 5 or whatever. You see fucking Sami Callihan roll around in the ring for a little bit or whatever. So yeah, no, there's definitely value to it.
The dynamic totally changes on a rewatch in terms of bad wrestling because it's already bad. You're not expecting it to be good. Like you're saying, you're not blowing money on something and then being disappointed. So, yeah, I mean, that's really we knew this was the rumor, the prevailing rumor, and we knew it was probably coming. They're definitely a victim of COVID. I think COVID put them out of business because they were planning running WrestleMania weekend. They lost a lot of money not running WrestleMania weekend, and I think that the prospect of attempting to run in a COVID world and a post-COVID world, you could just tell. I mean, Gabe made that Facebook post saying distancing and limited tickets and this and that. This is going to be a pain in balls. Like I'm paraphrasing, but I think COVID just was the final nail in the coffin.
I think you read that back and just said, this shit isn't worth it. Whatever. You know what I mean? Like I'm throwing in the towel here.
It's just I'm cashing in my chips, Jun Akiyama style, and that's that. And and Sal will soldier on with his other 3 promotions, and that's it. That's the end of Evolve. The one thing about it is, it occupied a space in the indie world that I don't think can be filled. And I don't want to have the same conversation we had last time we talked about it. But whatever you think about Evolve, whatever jokes you want to make, it's going to be a weird world without a Ring of Honor / Dragon Gate USA / Evolve / Gabe company occupying that stepping stone place in the indie world.
Yeah, we just don't. I think people misconstrued what you were saying on Twitter. I know it's shocking that you did that, but like for those that didn't live it, like what we've had since Ring of Honor really, by 2002, 2003 or whatever, once Ring of Honor really got off we've always had a countrywide super indie. You know what I mean? Like, we've had that forever. We've had that company.
Gabe running it, for better or worse.
Yeah. With Gabe being the spearhead of a touring super indie that had the best workers that weren't in the major companies wrestling for it. And Evolve has kind of stopped being that over the last few years. It's become something different. But for all intents and purposes, it still was that thing. It would tour. It'd come to your town. If you were in a big city, you probably got it at least once or twice a year or whatever, maybe a few times per year or whatever. We've had that since, 2002, 2003. And now we don't have that. And I don't know who's... people brought up names of who's the next step up, but I don't know that many of those companies are ready to tour nationally and fucking be the next step. Like, GCW's a totally different thing. GCW does tour. GCW different. Does a great thing, but GCW does not strive to be, here's the guys that are the next level, the AAA, the rising stars, the prospects of wrestling. That's not what they are. They're not a touring national prospect company like Ring of Honor or all those other companies were.
Does it the Gabe legacy promotions? It's not what Game Changer is.
Yeah, and that's fine. Game Changer isn't that. They're doing their own thing and they're finding success with it, but they're not that other thing. AAW they're going to tour. They're not going to tour across the fucking nation. They're Chicago, man. You're like, they are those next guys up, but they're not fucking going to California. They're not going to bounce around to Philadelphia, New York, and Dayton, Ohio, and all. They're not doing that.
Livonia, Michigan.
Yeah, they're not going to Livonia, like.
And it's not even so much about the tour, doing weekends in different states. It's just the place that it held in the pecking order. There's no other promotion that can fill that void or hold that place. And the thing is, I think that era is over, and there's no place for that kind of promotion anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
it's just a different era now. We've moved on from that era of the indies, and Game Changer does great things. They're not necessarily for me, but I always praise them for their business and the things that they've done, but they hold a far different place in the pecking order than the Gabe Legacy promotions did. And people, when I made that tweet, what about PWG? Totally different animal. You're wrong. I'm sorry, but you're wrong. Totally different place in the scene. And that's not downgrading PWG. It did not hold the same place in the pecking order that the Gabe promotions did. It was an all-star show on the West Coast that ran 6 times a year. Okay, it wasn't. It's not, and now they're going to come back and say, they ran 11 times. You get the idea.
But they're not in your fucking city. Unless you live in fucking Los Angeles, they're not coming to your city.
Unless you lived in Reseda.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's not, and it was an all-star show. It didn't hold the same place in the pecking order that the Gabe, there's nothing that can replace that. And honestly, I don't think there is a place for those kind of promotions anymore.
Yeah, the talent isn't there. There's not somebody out there that's going to say, you know what, I'm gonna fill that void. And who do you grab? Who's your roster? Who's your 15 guys and girls that you're going to pick up today and say, you know what, we're gonna do it. We're gonna fucking be we're the next super indie, the next one up. They're not there. I couldn't name 15 names that are there.
The talent isn't there, and it's also. There's 4 or 5 different. There's a half a dozen different promotions in the United States giving those guys contracts now. So there's no need to occupy that space because people are jumping right from the AIWs and the AAWs and the local indies to contracts with either forget WWE and AEW, but also MLW and Ring of Honor and NWA. There's just so many promotions now. When the Gabe promotions occupied that space, there was one company giving out contracts. And I guess you want to throw in TNA, you could throw them in too. Okay? And they're still, and that's another one. There's literally a half a dozen companies in the United States taking all of the talent now. Before that place, that space that the Gabe promotions occupied, it's redundant. There's no use for it. And that's, I think, why Evolve did struggle down the stretch. Because all that talent that Gabe would have used as the final stepping stone stop was getting signed by all of these promotions. And that's the world we're in now. We're in a world where there's no use for that sort of promotion in that space.
Right, yeah. And one of the names that we brought up, 2 names that to me are so obviously in another era would have gone through and done, Gabe stuff or done those second tier, like a Jake Atlas and like Chris Statlander were both people that were like, you could tell 2 years ago, hey, these are budding, they're really good. They're picking it up pretty well. They're going to be there pretty soon. And little by little, though, they were getting bookings, and then boom, they're snatched up. AEW snatches up Statlander. Jake Atlas gets snatched up by WWE. In any other era, they would have done their indie, their kind of AIWs, Beyonds, and those sort of indies for a few years. Then they would have done Evolve's, DGUSA, fucking Ring of Honor, or whatever, for a year or whatever, and then get snatched up, or 2 years. But like you said, WWE now is just foregoing that extra step and just saying, we'll finish them here. We'll give them the training they need here. And AEW in a wrestling war is saying, whatever, we need bodies. We'll take her. You know what I mean? Like, and that's,
and then those other 4 places too are trying to, they have to fill rosters.
Right.
Your Ring of Honor and Impact and NWA and MLW. And, I think that has contributed a lot to the demise of the Gabe promotions as well. I mean, I think that's, that they became redundant, and the talent dried up because you had 6 different places signing them up. And I think you gave 2 good examples with Atlas and Statlander. They would have never been signed this quickly in 2005 if they would have been signed at all. I mean, look at all those ROH guys from that era. They didn't get signed until they were in their late 30s a lot.
Roderick Strong got signed, 4 years ago?
Austin Aries and Cesaro. And, I mean, a lot of these guys didn't get signed. And if the scene was – if there were as many promotions back then as there are now, none of those guys would have lasted as long as they did in ROH. And ROH probably wouldn't have become what it became because they wouldn't have been able to retain the talent, and it would have went down like Evolve just did. So, it's going to be a weird, time to not have a Gabe promotion out there. And the same could be said for Chikara. I thought they occupied a very unique space as well. They kind of did their own thing in their own little universe and had their own little fan base that was different from the larger indie fan base. And now, and they don't exist either for very different reasons, but 2 anchor promotions of the indies. Those were the 2 anchor promotions of the indies, was whatever Gabe was doing at the moment and Chikara for what? A decade, longer than a decade, 15, 20 years. Chikara was on season 19 or season 20 at this point. So you're talking, almost 20 years. Those were the 2 anchor promotions of the indies. And now the indies have kind of just gone back to being more of a local thing in a lot of cases. And, you've got what Game Changer's doing, which, again, is great, but occupies an entirely different kind of space. And now we're in a new indie era with independent wrestling TV and basically everybody being streamed and a lack of – you have to find a niche if you're an indie. Whether it's meme wrestlers or whether it's deathmatch wrestlers or whether it's, because the great workers do not last. The Jake Atlases and the Chris Statlanders are going to get signed very quickly by somebody because it's a competitive market. So you got to find your niche. And Game Changer is very lucky in that they have a large roster of guys who are never getting signed by anyone.
They got a kind of an ECW thing going on, a Misfit Toys thing, where it's like Eric Ryan is probably safe for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is good. I mean, that's great that they've cultivated that, and it's great that they have that. But yeah, not
Clope and you could go right down the line with the guys that they use. Who's the guy that cut up his bicep and nearly died last year? I mean, that guy, it's like G Raver and I can't think of any of these guys' names right now. Jimmy Lloyd and these guys are never getting signed.
Nobody is signing Jimmy Lloyd.
So it's like, and I'm not trying to disparage them. It's a completely different space that they occupy, and they're appealing to, and that's how you have to appeal to indie wrestling fans. That you have to offer something other than work rate. There's not enough work rate guys to go around. I fully believe that work rate wrestling can still draw and would draw better than a lot of this other stuff. Okay. But there aren't any work rate wrestlers out there. So there's no test case for it. And all you need to do is look at PWG and see how they struggle to fill their cards now and have to look to Australia and Mexico and everything else because there just aren't a lot of good, solid work rate wrestlers anymore. I think that good wrestling will always draw. The problem is the indies are devoid of those type of wrestlers right now, and we need to cultivate the next gen, but it's hard when they immediately get sucked up and signed.
All right, and that will do it for this episode here of the Voice Wrestling Flagship Podcast. We mentioned patreon.com/voiceswrestling, voiceswrestling.com/Patreon. The ones listening live, you know that. You're $10 subscribers, you get it. If you're not a $10 subscriber, you listen to this on your podcast app. If you want to listen to the show live as we do it, patreon.com/voiceswrestling. We also have plenty of great stuff there for the $5 tier. I just released my Vacration, talking about my vacation, my trip to various national parks. The In Your House series still going on. Jovember to Remember also on that $5 tier. So plenty of stuff for the $5 tier. If you want everything, though, the $10 tier, we cannot recommend that enough. Patreon.com/voiceswrestling. We also mentioned the website as well, voiceswrestling.com. Some previews of stuff coming up, reviews of the New Japan Cup shows that have happened as well. A lot of other good stuff going on there on the website as well. But that's it for us. So for Joe Lanza, I'm Rich Craich. We'll talk to you guys next time on the Voice Wrestling Flagship Podcast. Take care.